Please come to order. Good morning. Welcome to the Commissioner of St. Mary's County meeting this date, Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. I am Randy Guy, President Commissioner of St. Mary's County. I'd like to introduce the other commissioners. Sitting to my right, representing the 1st Commissioner District, which includes Piney Point, Ridge, St. George Island, Mayor Sarah Colvin.
Good morning.
Representing the 2nd Commissioner District, which includes Leonardtown, Hollywood, Mr. Mike Hewitt.
Good morning.
John O'Connor, representing the 3rd Commissioner District, is unable to be here today. He's on Zoom. John, are you here?
Good morning.
Good morning, John. Sitting to my left, representing the 4th Commissioner District, which includes Lexington Park, some of California, Great Mills, some of Hollywood, Mr. Todd Morgan. David Weiskopf is our acting county administrator. Is sitting at the table to my left.
Morning.
Elisa Cassis, our communications director, is sitting at the table to my right.
Good morning.
Amy Carter, our video media producer, is behind the glass. Please turn your cell phones off from vibrate. When you come to the presenter's table, please approach by coming down the center aisle. And remember, this meeting is being televised, so you need to speak clearly and directly into the microphone for recording purposes. We will be holding a public forum tonight at 6:30 p.m. in this conference room. If you prefer not to attend in person, you may call 301-475-4200, extension 1234 to speak. At this time, we have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Morgan. Please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we enter into this new year, we thank you for your blessings that you bestow upon us. Keep us safe from the COVID virus, and let us be mindful of those around us for their health and safety. Guide us in our deliberations to respect the wishes of those around us. Keep us in your sight. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. I need approval of consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All approval?
Aye.
Any disapproval? Ayes have it. Next, we have some commendations. The first one is for Mr. Harold Young, retirement, and Mr. Morgan will read the proclamation. You'll please come.
You can come on up, Harold.
You can come on up, Harold. You can come on up.
I'm honored today to present this retirement proclamation to Harold Young, who incidentally couldn't make it for 2 more months to get a full 30 years, but that's okay. You know, we appreciate it. And then secondly, it's probably the only time in my entire career I've ever seen Harold in a suit and tie. So that's pretty good too, that you look pretty good in that for your next career, whatever that's gonna be, buddy.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the commissioners, officially commending Harold Young for 29 years and 10 months of outstanding, praiseworthy, and dedicated service with St. Mary's County government. Through your diligence, dedication, and relentless pursuit of excellence, you have rightly earned the community's gratitude, respect, and admiration. We hereby express our sincere congratulations to you on this occasion of your retirement, extend best wishes for you, for your future endeavors, and ask God's blessing upon you, dated January 1st, 2022. Congratulations, Harold. Give a speech? You gotta give a speech?
I think that all I want to say is I think that my time with the sheriff's office has been something that's been a roller coaster with changes of the time, changes of the people, changes of the personnel, changes of the community as a whole. But I enjoyed it immensely through my 29 years and 10 months, as you pointed out. But thanks to everybody, the county commissioners today, everybody, my family, for coming today, and thank you very much.
Pictures, buddy.
Get a picture now.
Your last official with a suit and tie on.
I've never had my picture taken with Harold in a suit.
Okay, next we have a Michael Gardner, retirement, and Commissioner Colvin will be You working that one?
Well, it's an honor to be able to present this to you also. Congratulations on a great career. This reads, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County officially commends Michael Gardner for 34 years and 4 months of outstanding, praiseworthy, and dedicated service with St. Mary's County government. Through your diligence, dedication, and relentless pursuit of excellence, you have rightfully earned the community's gratitude, respect, and admiration. We hereby express our sincere congratulations on this occasion of your retirement and extend best wishes for your future endeavors and ask God's blessing upon you, this state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, 34 years plus. It has been great. It's been good times, bad times. I've seen a lot of change within the community, within the nation, within the sheriff's office. I'll miss the people. I won't miss much else, but people, definitely. And I wanted to thank my wife for putting up with me all these years with stuff being a cop's wife. But she held in there and stuck by me, so I appreciate that, and my kids and my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, I need a motion to adjourn as Commissioner of St. Mary's County.
I move to adjourn as Commissioners of St. Mary's County and reconvene as the St. Mary's County Board of Health.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Aye.
We welcome Dr. Brewster up front here to give us our briefing on the, mainly on COVID. So I understand Dr. Michael's also going to be speaking to us. You all please come forward.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
And I'll also accept your fitting for the K.
I'm sorry?
I'll also accept your offer to fit me for the K95.
Actually, I brought some
Oh, you got some?
today.
Oh, okay. Oh,
But why don't we pass them around? If you
All
like
right.
one. And I've got more, so I'll pass it.
does this exempt us from the fitting, or we need to come get a fitting?
I'm sorry?
We still need to get a fitting? No.
Well, for N95s, we do recommend fit testing if you have access to it. So as I wrote in my message.
These are not N95s, though.
Yeah. Those that I'm passing around are KN95s, like what we're distributing to our community at this time. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay, great. Commissioners, thank you so much for your time this morning. Today, I am joined by Dr. Steve Michaels, our Chief Medical and Operating Officer for MedStar St. Mary's Hospital. We do have a very heavy COVID-19 update for you today. So if I could just beg your indulgence, we'll kind of move through the information, but then hopefully we'll be able to have some robust discussion as well with Dr. Michaels here. That is the next slide. So this is the the regional, Region 3, which covers our DC, Maryland area. It's the regional picture and projections of the Omicron variant. When we met a month ago, I'd introduced the topic of the new highly contagious Omicron variant of the COVID virus. And since that time, this variant has become dominant in the U.S. landscape, with projections in our region suggesting that it may have become the dominant COVID virus close to home. The last two columns with the asterisks at the top are projections, and that's projections based on what we've been learning about Omicron and modeling. Go to the next slide, please. We are still, all of this is supported by our local metrics. We're still in very high transmission. In fact, are at our highest levels of COVID infections that we've seen ever during the course of the pandemic. Is there a way to remove that box on the side?
Yes, I'm working on it.
Okay, all right, sounds great, thank you. So this is the new case rate. As you've seen before, it's the average daily case rate, which is a 7-day rolling average. It counts new PCR positives, as well as whichever rapid antigen test results are reported to us. So that probably won't include a lot of the take-home tests that are currently happening. It has reached strikingly high levels for us here locally, far beyond than even what we experienced during the Delta surge earlier this fall. Case rates have spiked to their highest levels in every age group, on the next slide, with the highest rates of infection in that 20 to 39 age group in red. The decline reflected here just recently, we're not yet sure. It might be more of an artifact of lower testing last week due to all the weather cancellations. So we're definitely monitoring all of this, and we'll see what happens this week as well. Next slide, please. Another indication of Omicron is that we are seeing more breakthrough infections than what we saw even with Delta earlier this fall. So as I'll talk about in a moment, Omicron seems to be more resistant to immunity from either prior infection or immunity from vaccine. Next slide, please. We are seeing, however, a difference in the rate of infection between those vaccinated versus those not fully vaccinated. With those who are not fully vaccinated, actually the prior slide to this, please. With those who are not fully vaccinated appearing thus far to have higher rates of infection. And I wonder if that slide got moved. It was the weekly case rate by vaccination rate.
Okay, so you want the weekly case rate?
Yeah, by vaccination rate.
Okay.
Next
Okay.
one, it should be.
Yeah, there's another slide in there, but if it's not showing up in the slide set right now, it's on our website. And that would be how we divide out weekly case rates by vaccination rate.
Dr. Visser.
Oh, that's it. This is it. Yeah, thank you. So this is it, the weekly case rate by vaccination rate. And again, a distinction that we're starting to see between vaccinated individuals and not fully vaccinated individuals. If you go to the next slide, please. We have about 62% of our residents fully vaccinated. At this point, fully vaccinated, the definition we were using previously of having had 2 doses of Moderna or Pfizer or 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson. The highest rate of vaccination continues to be in our seniors, with nearly 90% of them having had their original primary series. Next slide, please. This graph shows, and it may be hard to see with that box at the bottom, the numbers, but this graph shows how we're doing on booster doses in different age groups above 20, relative to those who might be eligible for boosters in those age groups. So the lowest proportion of those who are boosted amongst those vaccinated is in that 20 to 39 age group, the same age group where we had previously seen the highest rates of new COVID infections.
Next slide.
Unless you are able to.
Doctor, I apologize. We've got 2 different views going on in here. This one over here is the one people can see on television, and
Okay,
it's not.
then that's great.
Okay,
Awesome.
so
Thank
you
you.
good?
Appreciate it. Thanks for
right.
clarifying. All right, we go to the next slide, please, then. Thank you. COVID fatalities are rising, and we do expect this to worsen as fatality trends tend to lag behind higher case rates by some weeks. We've had 9 COVID-related fatalities in St. Mary's County residents thus far that have been in those younger than age 50, with the remaining distribution per decade as this graph here shows. Next slide, please. And again, the vast number of those fatalities have happened in those who are not fully vaccinated. Next slide, please. So I do want to speak to what I raised, the issue I raised back in December, which is we have, of course, been dealing statewide with the State Department of Health cybersecurity incident that has significantly impacted our operations locally as a local health department. While we have recovered access to some data systems, our health department is still dealing with the impact of that event that's affecting the state health department and its systems. Local health departments still do not have access to several data systems and metrics that we were previously analyzing at a local level. There are a few key metrics, especially this last one, which is an important metric because St. Mary's County residents may utilize hospitals in the region, as is true throughout Maryland, or get transferred to out-of-county hospitals. So having the kind of more statewide, region-wide hospitalization rate for St. Mary's County residents can be more of a complete picture of COVID hospitalizations for our residents. We know that hospitals across the state have been struggling with very high demand related to COVID and other elements. It is cold and flu season and everything else that normally happens throughout the year as well. So Dr. Michaels has very, very graciously come here today and offered his time to talk more about the situation at MedStar St. Mary's Hospital. He will also talk later about testing and treatment, and as we get to that part of the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Brewster. Good morning, gentlemen. So at MedStar St. Mary's and across the MedStar region and across the state, we've seen just a dramatic increase in the hospitalization rates related to COVID-19 and the Omicron variant. Just to give you a sort of a perspective, a couple of weeks ago, we had about 2,200 patients hospitalized in the state of Maryland. This week, it's over 3,300. If the peak in COVID comes very soon, that would be great, but the most dire projections are that it could last until early February, when projections for hospitalizations across state would be 5,000, which is quite a significant increase from where we are now, which would make it almost impossible for us to hospitalize all the people in the county and in the state. Today at MedStar St. Mary's, we are using every single bed, plus beds that we don't have in a surge capacity. Our volume this morning was 130 patients. We have several patients waiting in the emergency room to come in. Across the MedStar system, we have over 350 people in ICUs, and we're caring for over 1,000 COVID-positive patients across in Maryland in MedStar hospitals. Part of the issue this time, in addition to the vast increase in the number of COVID patients, we're at a record high COVID patients ever in the hospital, is the fact that our associates have also been significantly affected by the virus, and that's creating obvious staffing issues for us. It's been an honor and just amazing to watch the teamwork at MedStar St. Mary's. We've had everybody working extra shifts. MedStar has instituted a variety of very innovative approaches so that we do not have to go into crisis mode staffing or crisis mode care at our hospital. We're still offering elective surgeries, but we may be forced to look at that if things continue. But right now, MedStar St. Mary's is still open for business as a full-service hospital. We are offering additional incentives for people to work extra shifts, and people are coming in and helping out and volunteering, not only within the hospital, but across the MedStar system, including people from corporate. So it's really been quite an amazing situation. We've seen more than double the usual volumes in our emergency department. Part of that's because of the desire for testing and the lack of availability of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Thankfully, we've been able to offload some of that, and now we're within a reasonable volume, although much higher than usual, and we're able to handle that. The physicians, nurses, techs, runners, nutrition people, EVS people are all working extra hard to make sure that we're continuing to deliver the highest quality of care. We have gone back and instituted a no visitation policy, and we know that that was not popular back earlier during the pandemic, but at this point we think it's important. We've also moved from just regular masking to N95 masking for all patient encounters, and we do think that that's an important help in terms of stymieing the additional spread of disease within our associates. So what I can say right now is that we're geared for operations. We're girded for an additional surge if that happens, and we will continue to do whatever we can to provide services to the residents of St. Mary's County.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, if you could. And then, of course, Dr. Michaels, I'm sure we'll have very solid discussion about this because of all the projections and what we're seeing in our region as well in terms of crisis standards of care a little bit later. So I spoke last month about what we suspected of Omicron as it emerged around the world. Now we have a much better sense of it, but there are still some significant unknowns. Omicron, number one, is much more contagious than the virus strains of COVID that we have dealt with before, even several times more contagious than Delta, which in and of itself was more contagious than the prior COVID strains. So I think this is a very significant key factor of Omicron, is how contagious it truly is. Omicron, number two, is breaking through immune barriers. We know that it is breaking through the barrier of immunity from people who've been previously infected, so that natural immunity, because we are seeing reinfections, people who just had Delta now getting Omicron. We know that it is breaking through barriers of immunity related to full vaccination. There's some protection offered by full vaccination, but it is not the level of protection that vaccines were previously offering in the prior COVID strains. All this combined, along with the high levels of contagiousness, leads to serious spread of this variant for us here locally, and as the rates, I reviewed just indicated. Given the above, what I discussed, number three, better masking is key as part of the collection of strategies that we need to implement and continue to implement and improve our implementation of in this community. Masks work. They especially work when more people are wearing them and when they are using more effective mask options, which I'll review in a moment. Number four, what also is working is people getting boosted to protect themselves from severe illness. The situation we're in with Omicron is very serious. It's not just a simple cold. This is potentially a life-threatening illness. While early data does suggest that those who are vaccinated, especially boosted, may experience more mild illness and avoiding hospitalization, this might not be the case for those who are unvaccinated. And I think that's a really key point to make, because there's so much in national media headlines about Omicron being more mild, Omicron being less virulent, as we call it. And I think the data that we have currently and that we've been seeing is that this seems to be the case in a large population of vaccinated and especially boosted individuals. We are still seeing hospitalizations, even in people who are vaccinated, but much, much less so in people who've been boosted. And, of course, the other point on this is that even mild illness can cause significant symptoms for people at home, for example, and can cause loss of work, which, of course, affects on an ongoing basis our workforce. Omicron is, however, infecting many more people, as we talked about, than we've seen before. So even a smaller percentage of individuals who are at risk for hospitalizations or who get hospitalized, when you have much, much larger numbers of people getting infected, even that smaller percentage of hospitalizations translate to big numbers and big load on our hospital systems. And so I do think that's a really key impact. This overwhelming hospital load then impacts all of us, whether it's affecting, as Dr. Michaels described, our COVID-related hospitalizations or hospitalizations needed for non-COVID purposes. Also, we don't yet know the impact of Omicron on long COVID. When I've come here before you previously, I've talked about long COVID. There's a lot of unknowns with that. We don't yet know how Omicron is playing out in the risk that people have for these long-term COVID symptoms or sometimes debilitating symptoms that they may have after having had a COVID infection. So all of this really makes it imperative that we work together as a community to protect one another. And I'll talk about in a moment, we'll talk about in a moment more about the testing scene. But just on, as I shift into testing as well, I do want to mention genomics. On our local data webpage, we have one Omicron variant listed, and that's because genomics analysis may take several weeks to return. And not having access to certain data systems also impairs our ability to see that. We have detected Omicron through genomics analysis of our wastewater, which is a way that we locally have been trying to predict increases in cases or determine new variants that are emerging and monitor them. We also know, based on the rates that we're seeing, that what is happening locally is likely now significantly fueled by Omicron. We may still have a presence of Delta. It's hard to say when we don't have that genomics data. That'll probably take some weeks to come. But based on what we're seeing and the spread and the hospitalization patterns and so forth, I do think what we're seeing now is fueled primarily by Omicron. Go to the next slide, please. So these are more effective masking options we are recommending for everyone in our community. And given, this, it's for everyone in indoor spaces when they're with people who are outside their household. I've talked about these before. I am especially recommending the utilization of KN95s and N95 masks. N95 masks we have traditionally reserved for our healthcare workforce. That is still extremely important, that all of our healthcare workers and healthcare settings have access to N95s, and fit testing of an N95 is the best option. And I'm so glad and encouraged to hear MedStar St. Mary's Hospital has shown leadership in this by having all of their staff in that healthcare setting wear N95 masks. I would also encourage any other healthcare setting and environment to consider implementing N95 masks for their staff and making those available. Also, I would recommend N95 masks for critical infrastructure, including public safety. And I know our Sheriff's Office and Maryland State Police have taken leadership in this as well, in ensuring that their teams, as they're working, are utilizing N95 masks. Again, more effective masking indoors is really critical for everyone at this time to avert ongoing spread. And, again, especially recommending those KN95 and N95 masks. Go to the next slide, please. Along that line, this month, we've been working to mobilize KN95 and N95 mask supply to our community and critical infrastructure partners, including in school settings. Yesterday, in partnership with the St. Mary's County Library, we began offering free KN95 masks to our community as well. And we're hoping for more supply, and we'll continue this community distribution partnership as that supply arrives. So far, about 40,000 KN95s or N95 masks have been distributed to our community or community partners since the beginning of this month. Next slide, please. Another key strategy, especially for workplaces, schools, and public facilities, relates to ventilation and filtration and some other strategies that can implement. We do have a new letter to businesses that we've posted on our St. Mary's County Health Department website under the business tab for COVID. We'll be also distributing this as best as we can to business owners locally via our partners this week. In order to preserve our workforce and work functions in this county, I think it's especially our critical workforce, I'm recommending a return to teleworking as feasible, and that businesses try to expand their curbside and delivery option to minimize the numbers of public who are congregating indoors. I'm also recommending that these places, such as workplaces and schools, public facilities, and others, look at ventilation and filtration options for their sites that can really help reduce the amount of COVID virus in their indoor spaces. ASHRAE has put forward a good guidance that's available on the CDC website link that I've listed here. And the main strategy is to bring outside air in and move indoor air out. And that's, I know, more difficult to do in the wintertime when it's cold, but there can be an intermittent schedule of opening windows and doors and other things that I've listed here. And of course, the ASHRAE guidance has many more options as well.
Dr. Brewster, I can acknowledge and agree with you on opening windows for any type of facility. But as we've gone to, we hear, you got to be green, you got to be LEED. I can't think of a single office building or school or any place in St. Mary's County that has windows that open anymore. So when I can understand completely your logic of, it's like I've always believed, when you live up north, you want 5 days below freezing temperatures to kill everything in the air, and then it kills all the diseases and wipes it out. So here we're going to get 24 hours, not going to be enough. But I don't see how sure, I'd be glad to open up all the doors of St. Mary's County, say everybody has to have the doors open for 2 hours, and listen to everybody scream and complain to me, it's too cold, Todd, because it's chilly outside. I get it, but I don't see how we're going to, and I can understand the recommendation, but the way facilities are built anymore, they're designed to be internally regulated, not have fresh air coming in.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And there are things you can do to HVAC systems. And ASHRAE actually details out some of those recommendations, help with that outside air circulation. So it doesn't involve maintaining open windows during the winter. I've listed one here that might help. But even you don't have to keep windows and doors open for 2 hours straight. You could do 10 minutes.
I get that.
And then close them and then open them again in another hour or two for another 10 minutes. And that also helps. I mean, every little bit will help with that circulation of air without compromising the settings on your HVAC system or compromising the temperature that people experience.
Like I said, for people in their homes, it's easy to do. For commercial buildings, hospitals, schools, I just don't see how we're going to get there.
Yeah, it is more difficult, but obviously we're in a situation where we want to preserve our workforce and we want people to come to work that need to be there. And we want to maintain services in our community. And so these types of strategies do make an impact. And so, like I said, ASHRAE in this link has a variety of strategies that might be more appropriate for different types of central systems and different types of settings.
Yeah, at the hospital, our HVAC systems are built that way. In regular patient rooms, we have air exchanges 6 times per hour.
Okay.
Naturally built in. When we add scrubbers, it goes to 12 times per hour. In the operating room, it can be 16 times per hour, so that all the air gets exchanged.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I do know the public schools have spent a lot of effort on this as well in adjusting their settings to try to improve circulation of air as well. So as have other, non-public schools and others in the community. So there are strategies available. And cracking open those windows on a bus, cracking open those windows in a classroom for 10 minutes every period can make a difference in that.
Hopefully Dr. Smith is listening to this, and he's going to tell all the schools, if you have a window, open it up 10 minutes every day.
From a filtration perspective, it's the HEPA filters, and I've talked about that before. And then, of course, there's supplemental UV irradiation that can be helpful as well. If you move to the next slide, please. All right, so getting up to date really means this is language that we've used for other vaccinations, being up to date with your vaccine. We're now really encouraging people to think about COVID vaccine as being up to date. So whatever you're recommended to get, that primary series and getting a booster if you're eligible. There are new eligibility for booster doses. In particular, more recently, we've expanded booster eligibility for those 12 and older, and also shortened the interval from 6 months to 5 months for those Moderna Pfizer recipients. We're also now recommending Moderna or Pfizer be the booster selection for those who've previously received Johnson & Johnson, just based on the effectiveness of Johnson & Johnson vaccine versus the Moderna Pfizer vaccine. And again, as I mentioned before, boosting is incredibly important because right now it's the most significant protection we have against severe illness with Omicron. Next. We are also working a variety of strategies, and Dr. Michaels will talk about it in a moment from the hospital perspective, to expand local COVID-19 testing access for us. We are continue to utilize PCR testing, which is the most reliable. There also is an option in some cases for rapid PCR, and then there's rapid antigen testing as well, some of which are either administered by healthcare providers or they're those take-home rapid antigen self-swab kind of kits. We go to the next slide, please. So our St. Mary's County Health Department, we still continue to operate 3 testing sites in the county as described here. We are expanding our hours at the Hollywood site to include Saturday hours for us. We are so very grateful, commissioners, for the decision you made back in the summer to continue funding our COVID surge response. That helped us tremendously through Delta, and it's even more critical now as we're dealing with this incredible volume of demand and cases to contact trace and so forth. So thank you for supporting ongoing COVID surge operations through the health department. We are working with that staffing and trying to determine what type of Saturday hours we can offer. We've operated last Saturday, we're planning on operating this Saturday, and we hope to be able to offer Saturday hours throughout the remainder of the month. The next slide, please. We'll talk about some new state testing sites that are available both on the MedStar Hospital campus and at Regency Stadium up in Waldorf. The Regency Stadium site does not require appointments and is open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Dr. Michaels, if you wouldn't mind talking about the MedStar site as well as impact and kind of COVID treatment options that we currently have.
Sure. Pursuant to the governor's emergency declaration, MedStar St. Mary's Hospital was chosen as a site for the National Guard to come in and utilize some of the structures that we had erected on the campus. We're hoping that that service for testing will start this Friday. Run from 8 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 days a week. At this point, we do not believe appointments are necessary, but I haven't had a final word on that. My inclination is that the appointments won't be necessary. It could be completely administered by the National Guard. The hospital will provide some support services, obviously the facilities, but also some cleaning services. But the test results will come through the National Guard. They will be handled through the National Guard. The test will not be done at the hospital nor under the hospital's office. We had already established a small testing facility in one of the tents to help offload of our emergency department, which was very effective. Initially, we were doing between 80 and 100 tests per day. That volume has fallen off over the last several days. We're hoping that as the National Guard stands up its facility, that we'll be seeing additional people come through for testing and not to the emergency room unless they have emergency conditions. So we're very pleased that that we were chosen as a site. Our campus is large enough, and we have our traffic flow is adequate to support a broader testing apparatus, similar to what we did initially when we were running a drive-through testing center when the pandemic first started.
if you want to talk about treatments at all.
Sure, yeah. So prior to initiating our testing program in one of the buildings, we were administering monoclonal antibodies in that facility. When the monoclonal antibody supply dried up and we didn't have any more to administer, we pivoted to the testing. As monoclonals become available again, we will pivot back to offering monoclonal antibody test administration in those buildings. That obviously requires an appointment, and we're glad to give the information on how providers can order that service for their patients. There are other new oral treatments that are out there. Pfizer has the most promising one, I believe, and the supply of that in Maryland is regulated through some pharmacies. There's a very, very limited supply, and I don't know if you're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Right now, it's reserved for individuals with significant immunocompromised states, and so the ability to get the oral treatment for COVID is very limited, but we're hopeful in the next several months that will become an additional weapon that we have to treat this disease.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you go to the next slide, please. Rapid antigen tests, so those were all the PCR testing sites. Rapid antigen tests continue to be available locally, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about urgent care at all, but some primary care practices, some urgent care practices, and of course some pharmacies as well offer rapid antigen tests, as well as some take-home kits that could be purchased online if there wasn't such a limit.
Yeah, so our MedStar has 2 urgent care centers in St. Mary's County, one in Charlotte Hall and one in Hollywood. The urgent care facilities were also overrun and also experienced significant infection rates within their staff, and so they had to curtail activities at several facilities, including the ones in St. Mary's County. Currently, all the MedStar urgent care facilities are appointment only and via telehealth, and so if you have a telehealth visit with the urgent care provider and they deem that you need to come in, then they will bring you into one of their urgent care centers. Just yesterday, I'm led to believe that we'll have all of our urgent care centers again reopened in St. Mary's County by the end of this month, if not sooner, so that depending on how our staffing availability is. But of course, we continue to run the emergency department all hours of the day and night, and it's open to all residents.
Dr. Michaels, the emergency room stays open the whole time. I get that, that's great. People come in, they go to the emergency room. So obviously, intuitively, I would say that becomes a super spreader site, for lack of a better word. But is everyone who's coming into the hospital complaining of not feeling well? How do we distinguish between, I'll be flippant, they got the flu, they got the COVID?
Right.
Okay, so the guy comes in, doesn't feel good, the woman comes in, doesn't feel good. Okay, well, are they automatically being considered to be COVID? Do they give them a quick 15-minute test to say, okay, you're not COVID, so get the heck out of here, go home, take 2 aspirin, and call me in the morning, being flippant again? Or how do you determine all these things for people coming in?
Excellent question. So obviously, the capacity to test everyone all the time isn't available in the hospitals. I mean, we have significant testing capability, but we couldn't test every single person that walked into the hospital. So we've moved to a different algorithm. So if you come into the hospital and you're complaining of symptoms and you're stable and you're oxygenating well, your blood pressure's stable, things looking good, we'll swab you, but you're not going to get admitted to the hospital. So we'll send you home with instructions on how to take care of yourself and obviously to come back if symptoms worsen. That test we're sending out to a reference lab, and that test should be back within 48 to 72 hours. If you're stable, then knowing whether or not you have COVID isn't going to change the way we're treating you, unless you, of course, are one of those individuals who are unvaccinated and come in and are having real threats to your existence, i.e. you're not oxygenating well, you can't maintain your blood pressure, you're critically ill, and then you have to come into the hospital. So anybody who's still coming into the hospital, gets tested with a PCR test. So if you're being admitted to the hospital, we test you for PCR, COVID, we test you for COVID via PCR, and we also test you for flu and other viruses that might be out there. But if you're coming into the emergency room and you just don't feel well and you just want to know if you have COVID and you're stable, then you're not going to get that answer right then and there. You're going to get advice on how to go home, take care of yourself, isolate, wear your mask, and obviously monitor your symptoms, and you'll get an answer on whether you have you're positive for COVID within 2 or 3 days.
Okay, but that 2 or 3 days is a long time. I mean, if fiasco up in Hollywood the other day, as Dr. Brewster and I discussed, the traffic's lined up a mile to get a home test. Why can't they just go in the hospital? How do you feel? Do you have a home test? Nope. Here's your home test. Take your swab, figure it out, stick it in the thing. 15 minutes later, you're not sick. See ya.
Well, so first of all, I mean, we're seeing over 250 people a day in the emergency room. That is double what we usually see. The wait can be hours and hours and hours, and that's impacting you if you're coming in and you've got a stroke, because regular medical conditions aren't stopping because of COVID. So I would tell you that, I mean, you don't want us testing people who have mild symptoms just so that they know whether or not they have COVID. If they're stable and they're going to get over the disease, which is still the majority of people, then they need to go home, isolate, listen to the advice of the emergency room physician, and wait for their results. Then they can come out and re-enter society after the appropriate quarantine period. The need for testing is clearly there. We've tried to work with the health department to recognize that. And we still are seeing people coming in, and we're trying to divert some of them over to just testing only. This new facility that the National Guard is going to set up is going to help tremendously, and we're very lucky to have gotten one down here in St. Mary's County. So I think that, from my perspective, we're on the right path here. The answer isn't come to the emergency room and get a test, because we will in the end be hurting people who really need the emergency room services. The knowledge of whether or not you have COVID isn't as important as whether you're stable and whether you're doing okay. If you feel bad and you want to know if you have COVID, we're going to try to find you that answer, but it's not imperative that we know that minute.
Okay.
Dr. Michaels.
Yes, sir.
On the way over here this morning, I was listening to the local radio station, and one of the announcers said 90% of the people going to the emergency room don't need to go. Now, thankfully, the other announcer said, "How do you know that?" He said, "Well, I just think a high percentage of them don't need to go." Where I'm going with this information is to say it may be helpful that this hospital or through the health department or something be able to put out information about people coming in. And exactly what you just said. If you don't have if you're not really sick or you don't really feel really bad, try to stabilize yourself. Now, you did talk about oxygen and, your blood pressure. Not everybody, I got a blood pressure machine at home, but I don't have an oxygen thing at home. How do you know? How would someone know?
Right. So if you're feeling short of breath, if you feel like you can't get your breath,
okay,
and you're just feeling like you're struggling to breathe, I mean that's a concern, and then you should come in and get measured for sure. But if you have some fever and you've got some nasal congestion, or maybe you've got some GI symptoms and they're tolerable, just like pre-COVID, if you had the flu, you might stay at home for 2 or 3 days and sort of get over it. I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do. Obviously, people are concerned. They want to know if they've got COVID, but in the reality, we're not giving anybody any additional treatment other than the knowledge that they have COVID and what to do about it. So there's no emergent need to be started on a medication or to do something, take an intervention at that moment if you're stable. If you're just feeling bad but you're breathing okay and you don't have a tremendously high fever, you're going to be okay likely, and you don't need to come to the emergency room. We have to be very careful. Our emergency room is governed under federal law. we're not discouraging anybody from not coming to the emergency department. So if you're concerned, we're there for you. But realize that, you know, there are limitations to what an emergency room can provide. And if we're overrun with the worried mildly sick, then the people who are really sick, who are having heart attacks, who are having strokes, who are having other types of infections that result in sepsis and need to be treated immediately with antibiotics, those people are the ones that are going to be at risk here. I would agree with you, and across the state, we've discussed this with the Secretary of Health, that, you know, we need to have some gradations of who should come to the emergency room and who shouldn't. And obviously, that's a very tough thing to get out into the public. But if I can say it again, if you're stable, then you don't need to come. If you want to know if you have COVID, that's why we have these testing facilities, both at the health department and now on campus at the hospital. But most of the times, you're going to end up going home and, God willing, getting better on your own. It's, you know, we're there for the people who are very, very sick. You know, we've got 50 people in the hospital currently today who have COVID, and those people need to be in the hospital. But the vast majority of people who are testing positive are still getting better by themselves. That's not to say that this isn't a serious problem, because as Dr. Brewster said, when you've got, you know, now a very, very high percentage of the population who are getting COVID, there's going to be an increase in the amount who need hospitalizations, and that's what's driving this over a stress on the hospital system. So wear your masks, get vaccinated, stay safe, don't put yourself at risk, and this will pass. This surge will pass like the other surges have passed, and hopefully, you know, we'll start to see this go away. If you look back in history, back in the Spanish flu in 100 years ago, it took about 3 to 5 years for that flu to burn out through the population. So I'm hoping this doesn't go another 2 years, but it's incumbent on everyone to take measures to keep themselves safe. The health department, the hospitals, the medical community are here to help you. And from my perspective, this is their finest hour. This is the hours that you know, where, you know, just like in D-Day, this is when the health, you know, the investment in healthcare that we've made in this country is helping as many people as we can. So,
well, I have additional questions, and I'll wait until the end.
Sure.
The only thing I guess I would say to you is that what I'm hearing from a lot of people is the level of frustration when they go to the ER, that they're there 5 hours, or they go to urgent care, they're 5-6 hours. And so the point I guess I'm making is, you've made several good points. The National Guard part, hey, if you're having trouble breathing, you know, if you get a low-grade fever, a high-grade fever, whatever. These may be things that, again, can be put out in a public service announcement that says, hey, we're here for you, and we are, and this is our finest hour. I agree with both of those things you're saying, that our health professionals are really doing a wonderful job. And I'm just trying to take the load off you. If people can understand that just because I got a cough doesn't mean I have Omicron, or it doesn't have, you know, Delta, and I got to go over there right now and find out. Is just that level of frustration people have with.
Yes, it's quite remarkable, and I will tell you that the waits in the MedStar St. Mary's emergency room can go up high, but I can tell you that across the state, emergency room waits are now over 20 to 24 hours. So you can wait an entire day to be seen, and you need to like balance that against whether you really need to be seen. And I would agree with Mr. Morgan that, you know, we try to separate people, but if we're all these people are congregating in the emergency room, it's not great for additional spread of disease. You know, you know, we want to message the public with as much as we can. The most important message that we can get out is to take care of yourselves, get vaccinated, wear your mask, do those kind of things. we want to be careful about discouraging them from seeking health care. It's a very gray area. I'm saying it today because it's the truth. If you don't need to come to the emergency room, you don't need to come, but the emergency room is there if you really need it. And I can't tell you when that really is. That's something you have to decide. I'm trying to give a little bit of guidance around that, but we can talk to Dr. Brewster about making that a priority here in the county.
Thank you, sir. If you could go to the next slide, please. I just want to recognize also one way to offload some of this incredible demand on the emergency department is to make testing available in our community. And as Dr. Michaels described, the new state testing site at the hospital will help. The testing sites that we operate as a health department and are expanding hours for will help. But these, we're also really expanding our effort to make those take-home self-swab testing kits that have results in 15 minutes available to community members. That is really difficult to do during times of a national shortage of those test kits, where in getting procurement of those kits may be weeks delayed. And so it is very challenging for an individual in the community to do because things are out of stock. Pharmacies are out of stock, online is out of stock, the costs are pretty high for individual purchasers. And so that's why we've been really working to try to do aggregate procurement of these take-home rapid test kits and get these distributed to our critical infrastructure and community residents as best as we can, given this restricted supply. I do recommend, as I'll talk about in a moment too, that the county consider purchasing these on behalf of our residents because of the difficulty of that our residents are experiencing individually in getting these tests and the importance and demand that we have right now for tests. We also are encouraging, and we're also distributing these through a variety of community distribution drives. We started with distributing these take-home test kits in partnership with St. Mary's County Library. As the demand accelerated in an extraordinary fashion for testing, we realized we needed a better, larger facility that can accommodate more traffic. And so we moved a lot of our distribution efforts of these take-home test kits to the Hollywood Volunteer Fire Department and typically announce all that via our health department social media and website. I do want to thank, we've had so many partners that have been so critical in the couple drives that we've had already to get these out, in addition to the St. Mary's County Library. Of course, our government partners here, the Department of Public Works, who's been an incredible, solid partner at our testing and vaccine site throughout this entire time. Rick Tarr and his group at DPW, just amazing group of people. Our Sheriff's Office, our Hollywood Volunteer Fire Department, Maryland State Police, State Highway Administration, and of course the State Department of Health, which is sending us some supply of these take-home test kits, all have been amazing partners and critical to getting these test kits available to residents here in St. Mary's County.
Dr. Brewster, let me interrupt you just for a second. You talked about this Hollywood Fire Department test. My wife and I were out of town last week, and we got back Saturday late, about 5:30, and about 5:45, I got this text from a lifelong resident of the county. I've known him over 50 years, and he said he had gone to Hollywood Firehouse just after 5 p.m., and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, how did you know to go? He said, I got a couple of emails, and there was a Facebook page from 3 to 7 today at Hollywood Firehouse. I was there waiting for a friend, and the cars were rolling through like you wouldn't believe. I can understand if they ran out, but it would be nice if they would put a sign up that said, we are out, or doors closed. He said...
Yeah, thank you. That was supposed to happen, and I didn't realize it didn't, and we'll definitely take it up with our team.
What he did say, and I go to the level of frustration, so I just want to explain this. He said, why don't you be on top of things in your district, was the last thing he said to me. So obviously I got back and said, look, we're doing this on Tuesday, I'll ask Dr. Brewster. So my key here is these free tests that we're going to be passing out. Now, if you're going to do that and you're going to say 3 to 7, I mean, people would expect if they got there at 5:30, they should
We do
be
say 3 to 7 as supplies last.
Okay, but that would be the key, I guess, what someone would say, we've got 500 or we've got 1,000. So like Commissioner Morgan said, you show up and there's a line that's a mile long. You'll have to say, these people are going to be out when I get there, or you won't be surprised if they're out.
So there's two, and I think, thank you for sharing that feedback, and thank you for your feedback. And Commissioner Morgan, you and I talked this weekend as well about your feedback about traffic. There's kind of 2 points here. One, there's an incredible amount of demand right now, and we don't often know how many test kits we're going to have, especially if they're the ones coming from the state.
Still have 500 million coming in, or 500 billion?
That's a federal number. We don't know what happens with us locally, so we kind of wait to hear from state, and sometimes we don't find out until they drop off the test kits how many we have. And so when we plan these distribution events, we always give a time and say as supplies last, because we don't often know how many we'll have to distribute until perhaps that same day. We do, since we are announcing these things via our social media and website, we do updates to those posts that tell people how things are going. Our communications team has worked really hard to get those announcements updated so that people know, oh, the traffic's backed up, or the traffic, it's, there's still supply, or we ran out of this library, but we still have supply at these libraries. We do make those efforts to try to do that. We have a Blinky board over there at the Hollywood Fire Department. It was supposed to have said, it was supposed to have said at the end of that drive that the supplies are out, because we had to finish that time period early since we ran out. So I apologize to the constituent who reached out to you, because that was supposed to say a message to that effect. Related to traffic, that has, of course, we don't want to, we're so grateful for the efforts of law enforcement and state highway and DPW, especially in all of the help they provided in managing traffic. We do advise people not to come early because we don't want that lineup of traffic. But given the incredible stress around getting these test kits and the incredible demand that there is right now and the level of spread, I can see and recognize how traffic has taken a hit on that. So we're working on some strategies now to try to mitigate that and change our approach. So it's not just a, free-for-all kind of thing, type of event. We need to balance equity and access to kits with that, and so that's why we've tried not to take a more restrictive approach, but we recognize also that we can't be causing such traffic issues as what we've seen with the past 2 drives over at Hollywood, and one time we had it at the library as well in Leonardtown. So in recognition of that, a variety of our partners are meeting to troubleshoot this week, and for the next distribution event, which we hope to plan or announce coming up hopefully this weekend, if we get the supply, we'll have a different strategy in place for that, so it doesn't cause that traffic backup. And I know, Commissioner Morgan, you had some really great suggestions this weekend when we talked as well.
And I want to defend Dr. Mike. So I was getting phone calls too about the situation, and the traffic was backed up from Dean Lumber to the Center for Life in Richmond, where they made the U-turn. And as Dr. Brewster points out, we stated 3 to 7 or whatever, but people are lining up at 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock get in, so they're trying to give PCR tests, and people are all jamming up there trying to get the tests, and so it caused a major problem for our highway guys in particular, because they're trying to queue people up. They're trying to get people in for the testing, and people are now early to try to get the tests, or the take-home tests. They gave out over 8,000 tests that day to take people home. And obviously, when you're lined up, I couldn't even tell you how many people were lined up the Hollywood Leonardtown Road coming from Leonardtown, but the distance from Dean Lumber to Center for Life in Richmond is a huge track. And they can only do the best they can, but people are getting panicky, and that's what concerns me. When we talked about the scheduling, we talked about, like I said, I'm for the PCR test. I had a 9:15 appointment, got at 10:45, because people were not registering. They weren't filling out their forms, And people who had scheduled appointments, they just get stuck in the queue, and there could be 5 people in front of them who didn't register for the test, and they're filling out all the information along the way to get the test, and the person who's scheduled is sort of just, left out of luck. So I'm not sure how to handle it, because people are going to make up stuff on the website. They're going to put in 5 different times to get in. It'll screw the whole queue system up. So it's really a very difficult situation for Dr. Brewster, Dr. Michaels, and our people who are standing out there in the freezing cold or the rain, whatever, trying to get people through the lines.
Todd, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I'm just saying if you run out, just put a sign up, we're out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that was the intent, and we definitely did do those postings on social media about it. And I apologize to that resident who didn't see that on the Bluetooth board.
These things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Appreciate it. No, appreciate the feedback. And to Dr. Morgan, to Commissioner Morgan's point, just to, that week before Christmas was a really tough week. That's when we saw skyrocketing testing demand, somewhat driven by, pre-Christmas gatherings and travel and so forth, but also really driven by people just being sick and the spread of COVID and the emergence of Omicron and the continuing presence of Delta. It's a really tough time of year. A lot of staff, were getting sick and various entities that are working together on making testing available. A lot of people take vacation. They want to spend time with their families. It's a very special time of year. And it was very challenging for us to handle that demand. Also complicating that week was that the IT system that we are required to use through the state contracted laboratory for this PCR testing wasn't working well. It was directing people to other testing sites in the state. We had multiple efforts to resolve this with the laboratory, and it wasn't getting resolved very quickly, and so it was making it extraordinarily difficult for people to make appointments, even though appointments were available, and that influenced the mix of people with appointments or not with appointments at our testing site. That week in particular, we called on all of our staff. We pulled people back from their Christmas family vacations so they could work that testing site. I remember being out there, and it was very cold, and there was a huge demand, and there were long lines, but we have since addressed that. So now we do have separate lines for people who have appointments. We are requiring appointments at our testing site, just because the impact on traffic and because we don't want people to wait an hour and a half in their cars as they're waiting for their test. We know if they go to an urgent care, they may be waiting 8 hours or whatever is what we were hearing, or as Dr. Michaels was describing, several hours. As we overload the emergency department. So we are trying to make mechanisms faster, but we also hope our residents understand that there's just really an incredible demand right now, and we're really doing the best that we can with all the people who've been working now for years on this.
Excuse me, Dr. Brewster and commissioners, I know Commissioner O'Connor is on Zoom and his voice is not very strong today, so he's having trouble, but I did want to mention that he is trying to make a comment. Commissioner O'Connor, your microphone is open.
All right, thank you. Dr. Brewster, I wanted to say thank you for your efforts. Same Dr. Michaels. The sign was in fact showing that you were out of test. I happened to drive past after those giveaways, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you.
It's sometimes it can be hard to miss based on the placement, but unfortunately in these times, people just got to look around and really focus on what they're doing. The other side is with the testing kits. Hopefully we can look at methodology of leveraging our emergency services infrastructure that we have in the county to assist with getting these test kits to people, because we do know that they are going on these calls where people are calling in PUI, and they may be able to distribute these test kits to them versus having them leave to go get tested. It's another mechanism with the amount of calls that they run that they can get these out to the people. And there's some other things that I've seen in different locations that I'll get with you versus belaboring the point on hoping to ease the struggle of the lines and the traffic.
Awesome. That's a fantastic idea, Commissioner. I appreciate you raising that, and certainly would be happy to explore that more. You know, we don't want people to be calling 911 just to be able to get the rapid test kit, but I do think that might help with some of the issues that we've seen with the emergency department and the overload on our first responders. So thank you. Excellent, excellent. Look forward to exploring
We
that.
definitely don't want to encourage people calling 911 to get a test kit, but, you know, unfortunately, EMS education and the use of the EMS system has been something that they've been working on for a long time, and we all recognize, just like the emergency room, that people will dial 911 as an Uber to get an ambulance sometimes. So if people are still doing that right now, and we don't encourage it, but if we do have those things going on, then maybe we can leverage that negative with a positive and alleviate some of the stress on the system, and make that trip worthwhile for the first responders, even if, you know, they're not going to be transporting somebody. At least there's a way to, you know, I guess you want to call it, use it as a double-edged sword.
Thank you, sir. If you could go to the next slide, please, or actually, just to wrap up that, on that same slide, we did launch a test reporting mechanism in partnership with Pinpoint. This is a technology company, Maryland-based technology company that we've partnered with on other initiatives here locally, including those digital vaccine cards. So Pinpoint really stepped up and helped us out by developing a test reporting service, so that those who are using these take-home test kits can report their results, their positive results, and get linked to resources and guidance. It also gives us in public health a better understanding of positives, you know, the load of positive tests as we shift more to take-home tests, and so that we can better prepare our healthcare resources and kind of predict out the load that we'll have to deal with in the weeks ahead.
I know Pinpoint changed their, I had that on my phone, and it worked over in Europe and different places I went, and they changed it, and it's no longer on there. So excuse me, I reached out to them, and they asked me for my registration number. I didn't have one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to follow up later with them.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure. And we'd be happy to have them reach out to. On our webpage, you're talking about the digital vaccine card. So on our webpage is the customer service information for Pinpoint, just for everybody who's watching. So if anybody's having a need to download or re-register their digital vaccine card, they can go to our website, to that vaccine check webpage, and it'll have that customer service information. And they're incredibly responsive and handle those queries well. If you move to the next slide, please. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we're running over, but quarantine and isolation guidance has been updated, and in light of Omicron and in light of the ongoing impact on our workforce across this country, especially with the more contagious impact that Omicron's having. There are shorter durations of quarantine and isolation as options. I do want to say this is really for the general public. This is not for the healthcare workforce. This is not for people living in congregate living facilities. These shorter duration quarantine and isolation time periods come with higher risk. All right, so that is really important, that if people use these shorter duration quarantine or isolation periods, that they are very good about strict masking with more effective masks like the KN95s and the N95s. And we strongly recommend that as feasible, people utilize and get negative testing before they return during a shorter quarantine or shorter isolation period. And more explanation on all of this is available on the webpage at our website. We try to explain it out, and our call center continues to be available at the health department to answer questions as well. If you move to the next slide, please. Commissioners, I just really want to wrap up and talk and specifically talk a little bit more about this regional crisis load that we're seeing on our healthcare infrastructure right now. We are seeing severe impacts on our healthcare infrastructure and our public health infrastructure across our region, from the extraordinary testing demand that we just talked about to hospitalizations that Dr. Michaels was describing. Our neighbor county hospitals have entered crisis standards of care, which is when decisions can be made on putting priorities on who's able to receive certain care services. Several hospitals throughout Maryland and the DC region have either entered or are requesting crisis standards of care. Projections for the next few weeks are even worse than what the load our hospital infrastructure and healthcare infrastructure is dealing with currently. I understand the fatigue that people are experiencing related to COVID. We're tired of it. It's been an extraordinary stress on our families, our schools, our workplaces, our whole community for 2 years now. But this moment is a critical moment for our healthcare infrastructure and for all of us who rely upon having access to a solid, available healthcare infrastructure. In terms of what we will face, especially in the next few weeks. We have an opportunity to blunt the crisis collision course ahead of us with our healthcare infrastructure. These strategies that I've listed here and that we've discussed today are really so important to consider implementing now. I'm strongly recommending commissioners that you as a Board of Health consider a countywide time-limited indoor masking policy. We know that masks work, and just the presence of a masking policy will increase masking in indoor public spaces. Doing this in a restricted, time-limited way balances our respect for autonomy with the need to take prudent action to protect the essential services our community relies upon at a time of crisis and when our healthcare infrastructure needs it the most. This is even more important when we have such low rates of boosting in our community and an immune-resistant variant that is raging through our population. Commissioners, I'm also asking that you consider supporting our efforts to expand rapid testing access for our residents by assisting with funding to purchase rapid take-home test kits. And even an amount of $500,000 would cover about 40 to 50,000 at least in these take-home test kits that we can then distribute to our public and hopefully offload the testing demand and the ED demand and the panic that our many residents are facing in trying to access testing.
Doctor, you're asking for approximately $500,000 for home testing pieces?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me ask the rhetorical piece. And this starts, messaging is important. Mm-hmm. And I think the public has listened to as much messaging come out of the Biden administration as they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be no consistent messaging, at least that I'm hearing, because it seems to swivel like on a pendulum every single day. So we've heard, as Commissioner Hewitt points out, there's going to be 500 million test kits mailed out in the mail for everybody to get a hold of. And then we hear, well, now you're going to get X number of test kits and you get so many per day. Now your insurance bills are going to go up, so the insurance is going to pay for it. And you want to have more test kits. I have no trouble supporting what you're asking for, none whatsoever. My concern becomes is before that, is there enough test kits in America to fit 500 million? The population of America is only 350 million people. 500 million test kits going out, 4 per week, 8 people per family, whatever the heck the math is. I don't know. With giving you the allocation of the resources, good. Can we get the test kits to get out to the people is B?
That's an excellent point. I have limited insight into how quickly and how effectively that federal effort will happen for our local residents. I do know our local residents want access to testing. We can see it by the lines. We can see it by all the phone calls that we're getting. And they deserve access to testing, which is why we're focusing on expanding our testing sites, but we also want to expand those take-home test kits. I think we have been working over the past several weeks to get orders, to look into procurement, to source rapid testing kits that are FDA approved, and so forth. So we also recognize that when we order in bulk, we have a better chance than when we just order one here, one there, that kind of thing. Some of these sources have testing kits available, but they have limits. You can order a certain amount every week. And so we kind of have to, order what we can for that week. What we don't have are the funds to pay for that bulk ordering, so we can get cheaper test kits, right? Still the same quality, the same FDA-approved test kits that somebody would buy individually, but at a cheaper price because we're able to do bulk purchasing. And then, of course, distribute it to our residents who need them. So I understand there's activities going on at the federal level, there's activities going on at the state level. I know what we've been looking into locally, and our role as a local health department really has been to figure out what's within our control and to work with county government to put forward recommendations and requests to support what we're able to do locally. It may be that we don't get test kits for a week or two. There may be some back order through some sources, but there's a lot of effort right now in working all different kinds of suppliers to try to get those test kits.
What I might add is that testing isn't a treatment.
We agreed that. I agree
Testing's not a
completely.
treatment. And so, I think that there's some overemphasis on getting tested, where the real emphasis should be on personal responsibility about taking care of yourself to prevent yourself from getting sick. If you don't get a test, it's not going to change the situation. It doesn't make you get better quicker. It doesn't prevent you from getting, if you're not feeling well, you should isolate. But more importantly, if you're feeling well, you should get vaccinated and wear a mask and isolate properly so that you don't get, So, I just want to make sure that we're focusing in on the right things. Testing's important. It's a critical part. But I really don't want the public to think that, running out for a test every 3 days is the answer to this pandemic.
But it does give people a tool to help protect their families and their work sites and others that they're in, especially vulnerable individuals that they're in contact with each other. So if you have symptoms, we do recommend people get tested if they have access to a test. And if they don't have access to a test, as long as their symptoms are not involving shortness of breath or so forth, then to take the precautions that they would with the assumption that this is a contagious infection, whether it's flu or COVID.
You just covered what I'm thinking. Who should be tested? Anybody who walks up, regardless of the symptoms or not? There should be some kind of a symptoms,
our recommendation our recommendation is that if you have symptoms of COVID, that you consider getting COVID-19 testing if you have access to it.
Okay.
And this is primarily because this allows for that test, trace, isolate pathway that's so effective in controlling the spread of illness in communities. We don't want to overload the emergency department, completely concur with everything Dr. Michaels was talking about before, that the emergency department, please use that judiciously. It's open to everyone and it's accessible, and MedStar does a phenomenal job in making services available. But we really would prefer if people are just trying to find out if they have COVID because they have symptoms or they've been a close contact, right? And we do recommend testing in close contact, even asymptomatic situation, that they utilize the other testing resources that we have available in the community to prevent that load on the emergency department. But again, if people aren't able to access a test and they have symptoms consistent with COVID, that they take those precautions that we've talked about. And all of that information Dr. Michaels reviewed, and of course we have on our website as well, and we can talk about it through our call center. If you go to the last slide.
Excuse me, Commissioner O'Connor, your microphone is open.
Thank you. I think one of the things to keep in mind here is that, well, there's a balanced approach. Dr. Michaels hit on it. Dr. Brewster, you also hit on it. And one of the reasons we're seeing this surge is not just the transmission rate, but also the availability of testing. When we started this, testing was not available, so we weren't getting the data and the metrics back on what it is now. I mean, literally, you can go to CVS and get a test kit and submit the data, and boom, there you go. So you're getting that data that's putting there. So everything is reporting higher than it is. So that's another side. But I like Dr. Michaels said, and I have to lean on that, is people are just testing to test, and we need to be careful in how we're messaging the testing portion of this. And that, you know, just like you said, Dr. Brewster, if you're having symptoms, if you've been in close contact, then test, but not just because you want to go buy a test kit and test and get the availability. And it's my concern that as we get these test kits, that we're going to have people, because I've seen it in other areas, going to get the test kits, and then you get they're selling test kits that they get for free. Regardless, if we do allocate this money, are you checking identification to ensure they are a St. Mary's County resident? I don't want these test kits available to those that are not St. Mary's County residents, similar to other jurisdictions, that you must be a resident of that jurisdiction in order to get a test kit from the allocation that we've given. What I don't want to have happen is Anne Arundel run out of test kits and we start having people from Anne Arundel coming down, pulling on the supply from St. Mary's County. For our citizens at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Great point. Thank you, Commissioner. And, you know, we, of course, dealt with this during the early phases of vaccination rollout and so forth. When we put out the announcements and we, you know, make sure to tell our residents and inform our residents about these test distribution. And again, we've just had a couple of these larger community drives just in the past week or two. When we do that, we say that it's for St. Mary's County residents. The process moving forward that we're implementing to help address the traffic issue with these distribution will involve confirming St. Mary's County residents at the point of distribution.
Would there be a limit to the number of test kits you can get? So if you live in St. Mary's County, might have 10 relatives living in Charles, you say you need 20 kits?
Sure. So what we have been putting forward is that it's 2 tests per person present. So they have to be physically present to count and receive the test kits that we have. That's how we've been structuring it, because it's, you know, a bit more reliable than somebody saying, I have, you know, 20 people living in my house, I need a test kit for every one of them. And, you know, we recognize that makes it difficult for some people because it's hard to get all the members of your family in a car together out to get to a testing site, especially with work schedules and school. But that is what we fell upon as being the more kind of equitable way.
But in the distribution sequence, we've been using Hollywood Firehouse, I get that. But now, would you be proposing other places to get those kits? And if so, who would be responsible for administering to make sure, again, that they're St. Mary's County residents, as Commissioner O'Connor rightly points out?
Yeah. So we're doing the distribution directly of those rapid antigen test kits that we procure. So we have a process in place with that, although, of course, we're partnering with various partners to assist with that effort. We're not, the distribution through the libraries, we actually had our own health department staff there for the more recent rapid test kit distributions. Earlier on, it was just the library staff, but they have the parameters from us for that distribution as well. So some of this has changed as this has evolved and as testing demand has increased, and as we've learned and improved our process, and as everybody learns kind of the parameters. But moving forward, we'll likely do a new process, and we'll continue to use kind of these large distribution events like at Hollywood. I think Dr. Michaels probably needs to.
That's okay.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So if it's okay, commissioners, I'll move to the next one just so he can talk a little bit. I know he wants to introduce a new member of the MedStar team. So just to, you know, echo some of this critical staffing shortages and concern about the healthcare infrastructure moving forward, we do encourage and aligned with the governor's recent state of emergency and executive orders related to, you know, all healthcare types and allied healthcare professionals. We do encourage anybody anybody who's out there who's willing to help, please go ahead and register on Maryland Responds so that we can, utilize your services here locally. Dr. Michaels in the next slide, and Dr. Michaels, did you want to introduce?
Yeah, so gentlemen, this is my last time in front of you. I'll be leaving St. Mary's at the end of this month. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak before you multiple times. It's been my pleasure and honor to serve St. Mary's County. I want to take this opportunity to introduce my replacement. She's also Christine Ray's replacement. She's Dr. Mimi Novello. She's standing right there. Dr. Novello is a emergency room physician. She has ties to this county, and we're really lucky to have her. I know she'll do a great job here in St. Mary's County, and I wish you all the best.
Welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I look
welcome.
forward to working with all of you.
You have big shoes to fill.
I sure do. Yeah.
Especially at a very tough time, too.
You're taking Dr. Michaels in, Christine Race?
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yeah. So she has ties to this community. This is a small world. I'm not going to get it wrong, but I know that she's. I think John Roach is your cousin.
Yep.
oh, goodness. Well, tell us about yourself.
That's danger.
Pinnacle in the
That's
blood.
danger right there.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. My grandmother actually was from this area. She grew up in Hughesville, and John Roach is my mother's cousin, so first cousin. So we've been down plenty of times. My grandmother grew up on a farm there in Hughesville, so we've spent some time in Bryantown and in that area.
Great.
So I grew up in Bethesda. I'm the oldest of 5 children. Went to Georgetown undergrad, and then I went to medical school out in St. Louis at Washington University. And then I decided this is a pretty good place to be. I need to come back east. So I came back, went to Brown University for a year as an intern, and then did the rest of my residency in emergency medicine at Medical College of Pennsylvania. And then I've spent the last 22 years of my career as a practicing emergency physician, and most recently the Vice President of Medical Affairs and Chief Medical Officer at MedStar Franklin Square in Baltimore. So we've been pretty busy. This is certainly I think one of the really great things that I've seen through this pandemic is the collaboration and the teamwork and the strength of MedStar as a system with everybody working together. So it's great to come back to where some of my roots are. I was very close with my grandmother, and I think she'll be smiling down knowing that I'm back here.
Oh, welcome home.
Thank you.
Welcome home, yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Michaels.
Thank
for
you.
all-
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Commissioner, that concludes my formal update. Again, the 2 recommendations I made to you before related to indoor masking and funding to support take-home test kits, I still would appeal to you on those.
What I would ask on the funding, just so we're clear, Ms. Cudmore, probably, we've given the Health Department and Dr. Brewster some monies along the way.
$1 million for the COVID surge.
My question is, how much of a balance do they still have left in their account? So we sort of have an idea in our minds how much money is flowing where and what.
I believe I got them in yesterday from the Health Department. I don't have the balance of what COVID's been and unspent. I can give that to you.
What I would like, because since there's an urgency to this, which I clearly understand, and we're off next week because of Martin Luther King Day. If you could get that number to us while we're meeting, so we'd be able to make an informed decision, I think that would make me feel a lot more comfortable. I don't know how the rest of the board
Me too,
feels.
yeah.
Me too. I support funding some more for these tests, so I think that's a
There's
good
another
idea.
thing, too, about these test kits. I know some companies have decided to, for those who don't get vaccinated, they must have a test like weekly. So these test kits also go to these people, or should they be using their insurance or whatever to get test kits if they're deemed by their employee to test weekly?
So it's
I know you can't, you probably can't qualify.
logistically, it's hard for us to
Yeah, qualify.
all that and so forth, and we want to serve all St. Mary's County residents. We don't have that kind of policy here in this county. Though some employers may have something to that effect, and we encourage employers who are requiring that to arrange that as needed through their own.
Hospitalization and.
Right, so it's not loading the public system.
Right. You load the public system, we have to do that.
Sure.
So we are going to require, though, that you have to show an ID card, so you're St. Mary's County resident.
So when people come through, the process moving forward is definitely going to be, we've already been advising individuals that this test kit distribution is just for St. Mary's residents, but the process moving forward will be verifying that on site as well.
Good.
When we start verifying, we start slowing down the process. Of course, that's more of an impact on traffic, but as we implement other measures to control traffic, we'll be able to do that a little bit more effectively.
Dr. Brewster, it would be helpful if you were to say, I've identified, or I can get X amount of test kits, and it's going to cost me Y amount of money.
Sure.
I'm sure you get
It's about,
for this board
we've sourced all of that. It's about 40 to 45,000 for about $500,000.
Okay, and you've been able to identify a
We've
source.
contacted, we've gotten estimates. The problem is those, the orders, or sorry, the, what are they called? The estimates only last 48 hours, so we have to act quickly because otherwise the prices start to go up. But
Well, I
generally
think
it's
you'll
in that.
have consensus that you'll get the money as long as you make sure you can get the test.
Yeah, we've been working this.
And I also check with the state and the federal.
Sure.
I keep hearing about all these masks are going
Yeah,
to
and we
go
do
out
get
there.
some supply from state
Yeah.
as of
I
right
don't know
now.
where they're at right now in the supply chain, but it's been
Yeah.
talked about for weeks now.
Right. The supply is very limited coming from state. We expect maybe 350 some to come to us from the state. That's clearly not enough, and so we really need to work on some private procurement.
Okay.
Commissioner O'Connor, your microphone is open.
Thank you. Dr. Brewster, of these test kits, what I want to ensure is that this allocation is for the citizens, that it's not going to any governmental entity within St. Mary's County government to provide testing based on their own policies.
Okay.
So when we're allocating this funding, these are from county government to citizens.
Okay. If that's how you put forward your funding decision, we would be happy to comply with that.
Well, just find out if you get it.
Well, I mean, I already know that you can get them. I've seen the processes go. I mean, you got to place the order, they send them out. That's not my issue here. I know you got to get the order in for them to allocate them off of the production line. My main concern, though, is that the governmental entities, to include, whether it's our emergency services or anything else, we have the ability to procure these test kits for our personnel. While you're doing a great job now providing some of the test kits, what I don't want to have is the test kits that are for the citizens getting used because people are testing twice a week because of unvaccinated, or, they're testing vaccinated people weekly on top of that, which is not logical to me. But either
Right.
way,
I mean, I think-
what I don't want is wasting test kits.
Sure, understood. And I think, our strategy is multi-pronged, and one of a key thing is to keep our critical infrastructure going. So we have up to this point, and would hope to be able to continue to support testing access for our critical infrastructure that we need to maintain in this county that are dealing with staffing shortages, like public safety, like our volunteer fire and EMS departments. We have outfitted them with some rapid test kits that they can utilize for the purpose of keeping their staff going. And we hope that people realize the importance of continuing to do that, because we want them to be healthy and be able to protect us and serve us in this county. But the vast majority of our test kits that we've deployed thus far have gone directly to the community.
If
there
there's
has to
nothing
be
else,
some give and take.
Dr. Brewster and I would like to leave unless you've got other questions for us.
We just want to thank you, Dr. Michaels, for your service.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you very
Brewster.
much for
Dr.
all your time
Michaels,
here. Yeah.
wish you the best. You've done a great job. We welcome you. The happy.
You understand you're going to Southern Maryland Hospital?
Yes, I'll be taking over. I'll be president at Southern Maryland Hospital, so I won't be far. And so, St. Mary's County and MedStar St. Mary is a great place. I mean, I can't tell you guys how good not only the local government, but the hospital is. And so I'm going to miss you all very much.
Thank you very much for your time here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sirs.
So, Dr. Brewster, I've tried to wait till the end for most of my questions, but I do have a couple questions that I'm hoping you can answer. We did have someone online who was watching ask if there's been any discussion on distributing the tests through the school system, through the schools, and I don't know.
So the schools have their own access to testing, both for screening and diagnosis purposes. The state has made that available to them, both public schools and non-public schools. It's really up to them on whether they'll make use of that service. And again, this is something that the state has arranged, and different schools throughout the state have been utilizing for either screening or testing purposes.
Okay. Congregate care facilities. How are our congregate care facilities doing? Do we have any outbreaks?
Yes, absolutely. We're having
When this started,
outbreaks.
Charlotte Hall was absolutely the worst,
And we continue to have outbreaks in our long-term care facilities, as well as other healthcare settings and other community settings throughout the county. That's especially with Delta, and then now with Omicron, it's just accelerated. There are many, many outbreaks that we're working with our partners to manage. Our long-term care facilities are also dealing with very significant impact on staffing as their own staff get sick or need to take care of sick loved ones. So we have requested, as we, however possible, staffing support from the resources that are out there to help support staffing. We're still waiting on some additional staffing support to come, but we're working through all that with them.
Okay. So then, last question, kind of stepping back, big picture-wise. We know that Omicron is the most highly contagious variant so far. We know that the vaccine is not as effective with Omicron as it was with previous variants.
Against infection, but it's, as if people are boosted, it is working really well against severe illness.
And we know that the predominant masks, the cloth masks, are not as effective as the KN95s and the N95s, but the cloth masks are the predominant ones out there that people have. There's this idea out there that everybody's going to end up getting this. Any thoughts on that?
I hope not. As I said before, COVID-19 isn't a common cold for many people. Some people may experience it that way, and if they do, they are fortunate. But this is a systemic inflammatory illness, and it has a potential to cause significant illness in people, even illness that they may not experience right away, as we've seen, as we've learned more and more about long COVID and impact on the heart and the brain and so forth. It's a neurotropic virus. We're learning more about how it enters the nervous system. So I think, like I said, I know some people experience it as a common cold. Some people experience it as a very mild or even asymptomatic illness. But the potential for life-threatening illness and the potential for significant impact is there. So I think we don't want to take the strategy of everybody get infected with COVID. That's not safe. That's, we've already seen so many fatalities related to COVID, and we expect it to climb when we start to see the impact of this current surge. We are already seeing an overload to our healthcare and public health infrastructure, which will just continue to worsen as long as if we take the approach that it's okay for everybody to get sick. This might be a little bit less. This Omicron variant may be more mild in some people, especially the vaccinated individuals or boosted individuals. But it's not, again, as Dr. Michaels was saying, when you have a larger population of people getting infected, that still means big numbers on our hospital system, even if it's a smaller percentage that have severe illness. So these mitigation measures are so critical, and we've, I've taken up so much of your time, and I am so grateful for the time that you all have spent so that our public can also spend this time with us today. We've haven't been at a point in this pandemic like we are now. And I hope and pray that individuals who are getting ill from Omicron have mild illness. Fortunately, many of them seem to have mild illness. But we, again, as we deal with such high volumes of people getting sick, some of those individuals getting sick will get sick with serious illness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioners? Dr. Bruce, thank you very much.
Thank you, sirs.
Need a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn as St. Mary's County Board of Health and reconvene as the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you,
very
sirs.
much, Dr.
Thank you,
Bruce.
Dr. Brewster.
Next, we'll move right into our main agenda. We have Department of Land Use and Growth Management decision. Dr. Bruce, we'll get a decision on your request later today after we get more information from Ms. Cudmore, our CFO.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Proposed ordinance to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance for agricultural alcohol beverage production and alcohol beverage production, and to delete the current uses of distillery, winery, and farm brewery. Mr. Hunt and I suppose Mr. Castellanos is there to back you up.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
The Castellanos and I are here for the decision on the alcohol beverage production ordinance. As you know, the public hearing for this ordinance was held on December 7th. It lasted from approximately 9:10 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. 4 residents spoke at the public hearing, 3 supported, and 1 was opposed. We have received 5 letters and 3 emails in support. 2 letters in opposition have been received. The Farm Bureau sent a letter of no position. After the public hearing, the Alcoholic Beverage Board sent comments and recommendations on the proposed ordinance. The ABB requested clarification that someone with a license to produce an alcoholic beverage could only sell that beverage at a production facility. And that was to ensure that the location where sales take place do not cross over into becoming a liquor store. That clarification in the ordinance that staff was recommending for you today. The other clarification from the ABB was with the term tasting room that had been used in the original ordinance. The Alcoholic Beverage Board already has a term tasting room in their regulations. So to avoid confusion, the wording was changed in the ordinance before you to may serve and on-site consumption, which is what you do at a tasting room, but not using the term tasting room itself. So with that, if there are any questions, we're here to answer them. Otherwise, we're here for the decision. Thank you, sir.
Any questions, Commissioners? I need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance that includes the suggestions from the Alcoholic Beverage Board to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance for agriculture, alcoholic beverage production, and alcoholic beverage production, and delete the current uses distillery, winery, and farm brewery, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign any related documents.
Second. I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have the Department of Land Use and Growth Management requests for public hearing amendment to the comprehensive plan land use map and zoning map to change the comprehensive plan land use map category from rural preservation to residential mixed use, and zoning map from rural preservation to residential mixed use for the properties located at 23595 Pike Lane and 23556 Notch Road, Hollywood. Once again, Mr. Hunt, Director, presenting.
Thank you again. Yes, this is the first of 2 similar ordinances regarding land use and zoning changes. The location, as you said, was 23595 Pike Lane and 23556 Three Notch Road in Hollywood. The acreage of these 2 properties is 4.66 acres. The comprehensive plan amendment is to change the land use category from rural preservation to residential mixed use, and the zoning map amendment to change the zoning from rural preservation district to residential mixed use zoning district. This shows you an aerial view of where the properties are. You see the red arrow there points at the the border between the two, the larger one on the left, the smaller one on the right. You'll also see that across the road from them is the airport, and the Wildwood Shopping Center is nearby.
It's right on 235.
Excuse me?
This property's right on 235.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely.
It's not rural preservation. Okay, good.
Oh, yes, sir. Right. Next, please. The current land use rural preservation, and the request is to change to residential mixed use abutting to the north. There you see the large red arrows pointing to the two properties, and you see on the north is the residential mixed use. That is the desired land use category for them to change into. Next, please. And then like the land use is split, so is the zoning district. Again, this shows that what would be desired is to change to the zoning district on the north, the residential. Next. I wanted to show that the properties are not in AE2, the restrictive airport environs overlay from the airport that you see where the red arrow is, again showing the properties that they are in AE3 and AE4, which are not restrictive, as are the AE2. Next.
Mr. Hunt, what does AE2 prohibit?
What does it prohibit?
Yeah, I mean, we got a whole bunch of properties along 235 there in the AE2 area, and I think that when people bought those properties, they went in with the presumption that there was going to be certain types of usage, and then once we threw the overlay in there, that usage was denied to them, and subsequently then they're stuck something, I'll use just a piece of property they've invested in, and for all intent and purposes, worthless.
Well, Commissioner, if you remember, just to jump in, Mr. Hunt, is that when we adopted the AE overlay, we allowed a grace period for those properties, did we not, of like a year and a half for them to come in and, before the AE2 would apply to them?
I don't remember, but I'll take your word for it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Weiskopf has a very,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, they had an opportunity to make their case.
Okay.
If they were already in the approval process was basically what we delayed its implementation for. And if you also recall, unfortunately, the AE overlay had been adopted in the zoning ordinance for many, many years, but had never been placed on the zoning map. And so when that mistake was realized, or that omission, I should say, that's when we moved to amend it to show where the overlays were. And as Mr. Weiskopf rightly remembers, that's when if you had a project that you were starting, you were given the opportunity to finish it or to start something new if you had if you actually had the time to do that, so that you would be, in essence, you would become grandfathered before grandfathering took place.
You know how long ago that was?
Oh, that was 2 or 3 years ago. If you recall, Jackie Miser represented two property owners, a Mr. Fike and a Mr. Hodges, when we were doing the Lexington. This was all part of the Lexington Park master plan, and they came in and spoke to that. So that was it seems like just yesterday on one hand, but it could have been 4 years ago on the other.
Okay.
So,
Since I've been here.
yeah.
Thank you.
Next slide. The neighborhood description, basically, as Commissioner Hewitt points out, they're on 235. They also have frontage on Myrtle Dean Road. They abut one abuts the Hollywood Town Center, the other the Lexington Park Development District. Next. The regional airport is across the street. Nearby businesses are listed there, notably the Wildwood Shopping Center is nearby. Next. They are zoned RPD, but they're on MD 235. They're located between and abut the Hollywood Town Center and Lexington Park Development District. Next. So the justification for the rezoning request, the applicant believes the current zoning is a mistake that occurred with the last land use map changes. The applicant is also requesting the proposed zoning due to the change in the character of the neighborhood and surrounding area. Once upon a time, it was primarily residential, and now it's commercial. And I might add that Mr. Longmore, who's the attorney for the applicants, is in the audience if you need to ask him something as we go along. Next. The Planning Commission public hearing was held on October 25th. No one spoke against the request. The Planning Commission recommends approval to you, 7-0. Because this involves a land use change to the comprehensive plan, we have to notify the Maryland Department of Planning, and the law says they have to be notified 60 days before the Planning Commission public hearing. We sent all the supporting documentation to MDP next. And we also have to send that to the adjoining local governments, the 2 counties, Leonardtown and Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland. None of those gave us any replies at all. Next. Maryland Department of Planning did comment that, as I've already stated, these properties are not in the Hollywood Town Center presently. So for that reason, Maryland Department of Planning found them not to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. But staff's response to that is we are currently in the process of doing the update to the 2010 comprehensive plan. And if the commissioners approve the land use and the zoning today, then we will amend those properties into the town center. And that's all I have if there aren't any questions.
Okay, this is definitely meets the 2 requirements of a change in the neighborhood and a mistake in the zoning. I mean, these people got 50,000 cars a day going in front of their property, so I'm going to make a motion to authorize the Department of Land Use and Growth Management to schedule a morning public hearing on February 1st, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. for an amendment to the comprehensive plan, land use map, and zoning map to change the land use map category from rural preservation to residential mixed use, and zoning map from rural preservation to residential mixed use for the properties located at 23595 Pike Lane and 23556 Three Notch Road, Hollywood, Maryland.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Land Use Growth Management Day.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And once again, you're on the hot seat again here. Department of Land Use and Growth Management request for a public hearing amendment to the comprehensive plan land use map and zoning map for property located at 29871 Three Notch Road, Charlotte Hall, to change the comprehensive plan land use map category from mixed use moderate intensity and residential mixed use to entirely mixed use moderate intensity, and zoning map of the split zone property from residential mixed use and town center mixed use to entirely town center mixed use. Mr. Hunt presenting.
Thank you, sir. Again, I have a PowerPoint for this property as well. Thank you. 29871 Three Notch Road in Charlotte Hall has a size of 2 acres. Next. There's the location for it that you see in the red circle. It's a single property. You see just to the north of it, the Frito-Lay factory or distribution center. To the south is Southern States, and across the street is the farmer's market. Next. Comprehensive plan land use map amendment is to change the split land use from residential mixed use and mixed use moderate intensity to entirely mixed use moderate intensity. Next.
So let me ask this question before we start. So you're telling me that we have a piece of property, you're telling us, excuse me, that this piece of property is essentially owned by the same person?
Yes, sir.
It has a split use.
It has split land use.
Split zoning, right?
Yes, sir.
So somewhere all, okay, so basically what we're hearing is that, you know, the big parcel on either side, and this, how can this even get to this part to start with?
There are 2 hypotheses regarding this. The applicant feels like it's a mistake, which we'll be going through later because it's split zone. At this public hearing with the Planning Commission, residents across Charlotte Hall Road came and spoke, and their hypothesis is that it was intentionally split zone to have less intense development on the Charlotte Hall Road side to shield the existing residential area that's long been established on the other side of that road. And I've got some slides that'll illustrate that.
Well, I guess my question before I get into it, into the discussion here, is that, was the property originally all one, and then it got subdivided, and now the owner's coming back after the subdivision took place that says that the essence of the community has changed, so now I want to go back to what it was before?
The property was not subdivided.
Okay.
It's one parcel.
It's one parcel with two different...
Yes, sir.
Split zoned. Right.
Correct.
That's really the issue, I think. Go ahead, you got a presentation.
We'll get through it. Yes, sir. Thank you. So the comprehensive land use is, as you see here, next. And that illustrates the line between the land use types is not a boundary line. It's just the line on the map. It's not a parcel line. And you see that property is split in two. Next. Now, as far as the zoning map is concerned, the zoning map amendment would change the split zone property from residential mixed use and town center mixed use to entirely town center mixed use zoning district. Next. And you see that here. Again, the line is just the zoning line. It's not a property boundary line. Next. Charlotte Hall Town Center is a growth area. Mixed-use development is encouraged in the growth center, as would be consistent with the land use and zoning that are being requested. Next. The neighborhood of the subject property is Charlotte Hall along MD 235 and 3 Notch Road, and then the property also has frontage on Charlotte Hall Road, as I mentioned. Next. The area includes, of course, a major transportation corridor. Some of the nearby businesses are listed, and of course, I've named some of those: the Frito-Lay warehouse, Southern States, and next slide, please. The farmers market, notably across the street, across the highway, I should say, and the Charlotte Hall Shopping Center. And as stated, this property is in the Charlotte Hall Town Center. It is in a growth center. Justification for the rezoning request: the subject property is split zone, creating different rules and allowable uses on the portion of the property that fronts 3 Notch Road from those rules and allowable uses on the back portion of the property that fronts Charlotte Hall Road. Split zoning makes it difficult to develop and market the property. Next. The applicant believes the split zoning and split land use is a mistake that occurred with the last land use map changes. The proposed change in zoning can be granted due to the changing character of the neighborhood and surrounding area, as well as a mistake, if that's how the commissioners feel. The county has seen and, of course, continues to see commercial development in the area along 3 Notch Road. Next. Once again, because we're talking about a comprehensive land use map change, the Maryland Department of Planning had to be notified, and we sent the supporting material to MDP on this case as well, and also to the neighboring counties, the town of Leonardtown, Tri-County Council, and we didn't receive any replies back from any of those. At the Planning Commission public hearing, except I think I glossed over, MDP did find that this one was consistent with the comprehensive plan because it is in a growth center, whereas the other one that we just looked at was not. At the October 25th Planning Commission public hearing, as I mentioned, nearby residents did attend with their houses on the west side of Charlotte Hall Road. They objected to the land use change and the rezoning. Some of the reasons why they were opposed to this would be the increased commercial traffic on Charlotte Hall Road, next, which of course would reflect in the safety on the road and the impacts to the Charlotte Hall Historic District. I'll have a slide showing the relationship coming up. At the end of that Planning Commission public hearing, the vote was 6-1 to approve the recommended land use and zoning changes. Next. In the case of all public hearings with either the Board of Appeals or the Planning Commission, we have a GIS app that identifies properties within 200 feet on all sides of the subject property. And in this case, you see that little football shape, not football shape, but like a football stadium shape, green boundary, green object. What am I trying to say? Yeah, green shape that touches various properties. Those people were notified of the requested changes, as we do for all public hearings. Next. So it was the property owners across the street who showed up at the public hearing. And then, as mentioned, some of the discussion centered on the proximity to the Charlotte Hall Historic District. So with that, I went to the GIS measuring tool and showed that from the subject property there at the top, the northern end, down to the northern end of the Charlotte Hall Historic District, it's a distance of approximately 0.56 miles. And that's really the end of my presentation on this one. If you have any questions, again, Mr. Longmore is here. You need to ask him something that I've...
See, I find this one is a harder one to support.
I agree.
And the reason I say that is, when you look at the Southern States property that's next door, it's really focused on Route 235. And when you look at this other neighborhood, on that side of the road, I don't know, what is that, the west side of 235?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the west side of 235. That area that goes on Charlotte Hall Road has tended to be less developed. Where if you look on the east side of 235, where you have Burroughs and Parlett and Sunny Birch and all, that whole area over there has developed further back. But on this side of the road, it seems like it's been less developed towards the back. So I think what we're doing here is we're going to impact the quality of life of the people who have had that rural character back there for so long that I find this one hard to support. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'd like to have the public hearing, and since we didn't obviously hear from the residents, I mean, we all got the email, and it is tricky because it's a split zone thing, and I guess I would like to ponder this one more through the public hearing process to hear what the residents have to say, so they can state their case to the Planning Commission, but I'd like to hear what they have to say.
I can support that too. But tell me, Mr. Hunt, split zoning, that's a tough one no matter where you are. And do we have many of those in the county, and do we have many of those that are property owners and impacted like that?
We don't have too many. Some time ago, the GIS department did identify split zone properties, and as my recollection, there were a few dozen, most of which weren't. They were assumed to be split zone, but it's when you transfer from various maps to GIS, the property lines sometimes move back and forth, and most of those that we looked at really were caused because of that rather than true split zoning. So as far as actual split zoning, we'll have a better answer for that as we complete the more detailed GIS mapping that's currently underway for the 2010 Comprehensive Plan update, because where you have split land use, which is what the comp plan's about, you will have split zoning to go with it. So we'll have a little better look at that. Overall, though, there aren't too many, but there are some. And how many, I don't know exactly.
Well, Commissioner Morgan, I would support a public hearing if you motion to one, but I will have to hold judgment on supporting it once we're done.
Well, I believe there's a lot of things we can look at on this. Under the split zoning, it affects about like 7 properties right here alone. But we can also look at restricting access to the property off of Charlotte Hall Road, that all the access must be off of the main road.
On that, you're going to have to refer to Mr. Weiskopf, because when you grant a rezoning, it can't, it's my understanding, and he'll clarify, that you can't place conditions on that at the time of the rezoning.
That's correct, and split zoning is discouraged, and I know when we've had comprehensive reviews, like such as the Lexington Park, development, we, did away with most of the split zoning. My guess is because, as you've pointed out, this one is more complicated, it was probably left alone. But
Mr. Weiskopf, what I would say is, one, that corridor has some rural character to it, but unfortunately, we have a junkyard that's sitting there where properties sit back alongside of it, and quite other few blighted places that need to be fixed. So, as the other commissioner stated, the split zoning is, I'm not in favor of that, simply because there needs to be a long-term plan for the north end of the county. This board has seen multiple rezonings come before us, whether it's for comprehensive water and sewer, whether it's hookups. Nothing has ever been put forward as a total plan. And doing the split zoning is just, not only it's going to cause some issues with some other historical properties, but it leaves no continuity for the rest of the services in the north end of the county. So while a public hearing would be great, I just don't see how we move forward on this in this particular format.
Well, I think the request from Mr. Hunt is for a public hearing. And I agree that the public hearing should take place for everyone to get their arms around. So I'll make a motion, and we'll see where it goes. I move to authorize the Department of Land Use and Growth Management to schedule an evening public hearing on February 1st, 2022 for an amendment to the comprehensive land use map and zoning map to change the land use map category from rural preservation to residential mixed use, and zoning map from rural preservation to residential mixed use for the properties located at 23595 Pike Lane and 235563 Notch Road, Hollywood.
No, I think that's the other one.
Wrong
That's the
one.
last one.
That's the last one we did.
I apologize.
There should be
Okay,
C.
I guess all I got to do is smart to turn the page. I can do that, okay? Turn the page. I'll begin again. I apologize. I move to authorize the Department of Land Use and Growth Management to schedule an evening public hearing on February 1st, 2022 to consider an amendment to the comprehensive land use map and zoning map for the property located at 29871 Notch Road, Charlotte Hall, to change a comprehensive map plan land use map category from mixed use moderate intensity and residential mixed use to entirely mixed use moderate intensity and zoning map of the split zone property from the residential mixed use and town center mixed use to entirely town center mixed use.
Second.
Do we need to put a time in there now?
Yes, sir, we do, for the legal ad that has to.
How's 6:30 p.m.?
6:30 is great. And I believe the evening is the best, so that the residents have the opportunity to come speak and not take away from their day.
Okay, I have a first and a second on the evening, 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Aye. John?
Aye.
Okay, got it, John, good. Anybody nay? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we move right into county administrator time, and we'll leave it to our acting county administrator, Mr. Weiskopf.
Thank you, Commissioner President Guy. First is the draft agendas for January 25th and February 1st, 2022. There will be no meeting of the commissioners on January 18th. So for Tuesday, January 25th at 9 a.m., we have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner President Guy, approval of consent agenda, 9:05 proclamation for School Choice Week, 9:10 commendation for Christine Ray's retirement, 9:15 the Office of the County Attorney for legislative updates, 9:45 County Administrator time, 10:45 Commissioner time, 10:55 closed session for personnel, then adjourn. And then on February 1st at 9 a.m., we'll have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Colvin, and then approval of the consent agenda. 9:05, the proclamation for African American History Month. 9:10, proclamation Dating Violence Prevention Month. 9:15, proclamation for Transit Equity Day. And then at 9:20, a commendation for Noreen Rose retirement. And then you also have a public hearing from the Department of Land Use and Growth Management for an amendment to the comprehensive plan land use map and zoning map for property located at 29871 Three Notch Road, Charlotte Hall, to change the comprehensive land use. Oh, I'm sorry, this one will be at evening at 6:30. I thought I was reading, land use map category from mixed use moderate intensity and residential mixed use to entirely mixed use moderate.
Are we also having a public hearing that morning for the Pike?
Yes, they just, for whatever reason, it's reversed on this.
Okay.
And so at 9:30 in the morning, Department of Land Use and Growth Management will have a public hearing to amend the comprehensive land use map and zoning map to change the comprehensive plan land use map category from rural preservation to residential mixed use, and zoning map from rural preservation to residential mixed use for the properties located at 23595 Pike Lane and 23556 Three Notch Road, Hollywood. And then at 10 o'clock, the College of Southern Maryland, State of the College, and then at 10:30, the St. Mary's College of Maryland, State of the College. And then at 11, the Office of the County Attorney for legislative updates. And then at 11:20, the County Administrator time, 12:20, Commissioners time, 12:30, closed session personnel, adjourn until 6:30 for the second public hearing that I previously mentioned. And that takes us to the first on our list today, which is from the Department of Finance, Board of Education, request approval of fiscal year 2022 restricted fund budget adjustment. And I believe Cheryl Long and Tammy McCourt are on Zoom, and Jeanette Cudmore is in person.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, this is for a FY22 Board of Education Learning in Extended Academic Programs LEAP Grant Award. We have Cheryl Long and Tammy McCourt on Zoom who can address and go over the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, ladies.
Yes, good morning. I'm Cheryl Long, Director of Student Services for St. Mary's County Public Schools, and I'm presenting to you information on the Learning in Extended Academic Programs Grant. On July 27, 2021, St. Mary's County Public Schools was notified of the opportunity to apply for the LEAP grant via the Maryland State Department of Education. The LEAP grant provides funding to eligible schools to provide extended academic programming that has a positive measurable impact on or enriches the academic performance and overall well-being of students who are at risk of falling behind academically. For St. Mary's County Public Schools, this grant has been approved to provide social-emotional programming support for primary grades, specifically students in kindergarten through second grade. LEAP eligible schools are those in which 80% of the students qualify for free reduced meal programs. Support from the LEAP grant will be provided at George Washington Carver Elementary School via an after-school program Monday through Thursday from 2:45 to 4:45. The grant award has resulted in an increase to the FY 2022 restricted fund budget for a total of $148,314 to support the grant activities. The funds are distributed throughout the categories as outlined on the documentation that you have there that's provided. The recommended action is that the Commissioners of St. Mary's County approve this agenda item as presented.
Ms. Long, one question, as Commissioner Colvin. Is this restricted to students at George Washington Carver Elementary, or is it going to be open to other at-risk students?
Yes, this particular LEAP restricted to those at George Washington Carver.
Okay.
Ms. Long, Mike Hewitt, how's this different from Title I money, or is it the same?
This LEAP grant was specifically identified for students, for schools rather that qualified under 80% free and reduced, so it's funding outside of the one.
80% was the metric you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Long, is this a first-time grant?
Yes, for us it is, yes. This is the first year that we've qualified for this grant.
Okay, where's this money coming from in the state? Is this part of federal stimulus money being pushed out?
This grant has existed for, and I'm sorry, I don't have the exact, but numerous years prior. This is just the first year that St. Mary's County Public Schools has been eligible for it.
Well, my concern obviously is that every time we get a grant, we come back in a couple months and get a request for full-time funding. And it just keeps, you know, the story that never ends. So my concern becomes, while we get this grant the first time, are we going to be asked to be dependent upon this grant in the future through the school
This
board
grant
budget?
is actually, yeah, I'm sorry. So the funds from this grant is actually, we're working together with a program that is already in place at George Washington Carver, their after-school program. So just additionally, we're able to add some social emotional activities and support to that program that's already intact.
What are, for the public, would you define social emotional programming to expand what's already there?
Sure. So they have, their after-school program is already targeted in for academics, for reading and math. So additionally, what we'll do is we'll have guided lessons and modeled activities to educate students in strategies that they can use for problem solving and to help regulate their emotions and responding to different situations that may come up through the school day for them.
I'd say this 80% free and reduced lunch, I mean, that's a very, very high number. Those children are a challenged population, need all the help they can get.
There's no doubt.
Oh, no doubt.
Well, I'm going to move to approve the increase to the St. Mary's County Public Schools FY 2022 restricted fund budget by $148,314 to support the implementation of the LEAP grant.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners. While I'm here, I do have an update on the balances that's available. Follow up to the Health Department?
Yes.
If you would like that information
Yes.
now? Okay. You've heard from Dr. Brewster that the billing and the computer systems are been down. So their last invoice that they were sent to us was in November. So as of now, what we've been billed is only $275,000 of that $1 million for that surge project, leaving $724,000. I believe at this time we probably should let them get caught up on their billing without touching any of that. There is roughly $198,000 left in the American Rescue Project that has not been allocated. I come back to you on January 25th. Your emergency reserve has $648,000 in it. I believe you should keep that in there for snow removal. There is a COVID fund project that was started in FY 2020 that currently has a balance of about $1.7 million in that.
That for, please.
That is for COVID-related items. That was initially done prior to getting all the FEMA, getting all the CARES, and that money was at June 30, was at 1.7, and we're still at that money, and it would be good to get that funding actually spent by our June 30.
What's the date that's got to be spent? The COVID.
Well, it was your fund balance that was appropriated, but we really would like to get that spent by this June 30 because.
By this June 30th?
Yes, so
Well,
that does
it's
have
our
the
fund balance. We
1.7.
can
Well,
use it whenever we need to, yeah.
Yeah, and then also anything that might be a shortfalls for any other funding like the emergency service billing, that could also take care of. And remember, when she was talking about the National Guard is coming, and I think starting this Friday, and they're bringing their own test kits, so that may be something to consider also regarding the $500,000, maybe do half.
Yeah, I'd say to you that, I remember when she asked for the million, it was a month later before she even actually put the request in. So I would say, Commissioner Morgan, that she's got $725. She's got the money to buy these kits if she wants to buy the kits. Until they did some kind of an accounting of the million we've already given them. I mean, to only invoiced us for $275, just seems like there would be some responsibility.
You got $725,000 sitting there, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it'd be some accountability to say, this has been spent.
I agree with you completely. I just want to make sure before we say take money out of the emergency reserve, we asked Ms. Cudmore, how much money do we have in all these pots? Because, they're so disparate with the American Rescue and the CARES, and, you name it from Biden, it's there.
I agree with you, but it looks like she's got it to spend. If she wants to spend it, she just needs to spend it, prioritize it and spend it.
I think there's something important to, you're not mixing apples with oranges here, is that $1 million that we allocated was for operational expenses relating to human capital, not the physical test kits or anything else. That was actually to ensure that they continued the operation. So that's what they've been utilizing with that $1 million. One has nothing to do with the other. So this would be an actual expense for test kits since they become available. The National Guard is going to be bringing some with them, so I would agree that the $250,000 for the test kits, especially with the fact that we have some departments that are reaching critical mass in government operations and have to go ahead and test some of their employees twice a week. We're going to have these test kits regardless. So I think, it'd be foolish not to approve this now and get it taken care of, especially with the funding that Ms. Cudmore just stated is sitting there that was already allocated for COVID-19, the $1.7 million.
So you suggest take $250,000 out of the $1.7 million?
Correct, yeah.
I'd support that.
That's
That makes
fair.
sense.
So I'll make the motion to take $250,000 out of the $1.7 million COVID money designated to Dr. Brewster and the Health Department for the procurement of testing kits.
For St. Mary's County residents.
St. Mary's County residents only.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioners. Maybe if Ms. Cudmore could stay for the next one, which is, if you don't mind, I'm sorry to spring this on you, Circuit Court, the acceptance of a Family Service Coordinator Supplemental Grant Award. I don't see Ms. Claire from Circuit Court. What this was an additional sum of $11,000 to pay out the leave for the family coordinator that retired. Oh, it seems, the Administrative Office of Courts gave them a supplemental grant in that amount to
Yes,
pay out the leave.
$11,199.16. So that has been a supplemental award, and we have a BA in here to actually do that, and that is correct, used for the leave payout.
So it's a one-time expense?
Yes. Yes.
All right, I move to accept and approve the Family Services Grant Supplemental Award from the Administrative Office of the Courts in the amount of $11,199.16 and authorize the Commissioner President to sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any disapproval? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Cudmore. And next, we have the Department of Economic Development, Chris Casalemas, regarding a property tax credit incentive for Irony LLC, otherwise known as St. James Deli and Spirits, for expanding employment.
Thank you, Mr. Weiskopf. Good morning, Commissioners. Today, we have a request from St. James Deli and Spirits for a property tax credit under the county's new and expanding business tax credit program. This is a St. Mary's County incentive for businesses located in or moving to the county in a targeted industry, hiring at least 10 full-time employees. A little bit of background. This property tax credit was approved by commissioners in 2017 and allows businesses in the following industries that will create 10 or more jobs to receive a property tax credit for up to 10 years. The following industries are targeted: commercial application of defense technology, cybersecurity, aerospace and aviation, unmanned autonomous systems, agriculture and aquaculture, value-added ag products, technology, manufacturing. Also, businesses that will provide a service or product in an underserved area or fill a service gap for residents living in development districts or town centers. And retail, local service, and tourism-related businesses that will operate in a targeted investment area. The incentive is open to both businesses that construct a new facility and those that own or lease an existing building within St. Mary's County. The process provides that the Director of Department of Economic Development will review applications and make recommendations for approval to the commissioners who have final approval authority. St. James Deli has been in the process of renovating their store for almost 2 years. The business began operations in 1988. They've invested $2.2 million to improve and expand the business to 7,000 square feet. They estimate that over the next 3 years, they will create 12 new full-time jobs. The tax credit requires the creation of 10 or more. The tax credit will not begin until they have created the first 10 jobs. The new, as I mentioned, the new and expanding tax credit policy allows for credit for retail establishments only when such establishments are located in an area where the county is seeking such establishments or where there's a gap in service or product for local residents. St. James Deli is the only restaurant within 9 miles of the southernmost tip of St. Mary's County and is over 7 miles from restaurants located in the Great Mills Corridor. St. James serves a large clientele from both Pax Rivers Webster Outlying Field and St. Mary's College of Maryland. They do own their building. If they hire 12 full-time employees, as anticipated, the tax credit will be $5,000 per year for a period of 5 years. And that's all I've got.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
I will tell you that I'm very excited about them completing their renovation. Between both coworkers in my other job and residents down there, this has been one of the biggest questions that I repeatedly get is when is St. James going to be opening back up? And from the pictures I've seen, it looks gorgeous. I think they're doing a good job. So
you're getting close.
I support this. Thank you for bringing this to us. I think it's a good idea.
And I would concur with Commissioner Colvin. I mean, if you work down at Wolf, what I would call Nessie,
yeah.
The demand for the sandwiches and the pizza is out of control. I'm sure that the young students are clamoring to get back there also and indulge in whatever the college students are indulging in these days down there. But I think it's a really good, and Dave, I know that Dave and working on that for years. Don Kropp's been doing the building down there. It's all good. It's all good down there.
I'll tell you, I have coworkers who went and bought pizza and freezed it before they closed so that they would be able to get their St. James pizza afterward. Yep. So I move to approve the property tax credit for Irony LLC, St. James Deli and Spirits under the county's new and expanding tax credit program and authorize the commissioner president to sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castellanos. And the Thompsons were also kind enough to employ me in college. So next
That was
is
before it was St. James.
no, it was St. James.
It's been
Dave and
St.
Sherry
James for a
Thompson.
It was
long
Pulliam
time.
back then, was it?
No, that was prior to 1988.
Okay. Well, I was back that's when the days I was drinking down there.
Next is Department of Aging and Human Services regarding the Community Block Grant, COVID-19 Round 2 Emergency Rental Assistance Agreement. We have Lori Jennings Harris and Cynthia Brown presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Weiskopf. Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
So we're coming full circle with this. This is the CDBG COVID-19 Round 2 Grant Award from the Department of Housing and Community Development. The amount awarded to St. Mary's County, the total is $700,000. The initial amount awarded was $75,000, and the remaining amount is $625,000 to be awarded. There are 5 subrecipient agreements, 2 that will go to 3 Oaks. Lanny Lancaster, I believe, is joining by way of Zoom. He is there. 1 to Tri-County Community Action, 1 to Southern Maryland Center for Independent Living, and the final to the Center for Life Enrichment. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, commissioners?
Well, I'll move to accept the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG COVID-19 Round 2 Emergency Award Agreement and related documents, Project US 2129, on behalf of the Maryland Department of Housing Community Development, DHCD, in the initial grant amount of $75,000 and the remaining amount due of $625,000, equaling $700,000 total grant award. Approve the budget amendment to set additional budget authority, execute the sub-recipient agreements, and authorize the Commissioner President to execute the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any disapprovals? Ayes have it.
Okay, thank you,
all very
Commissioner.
much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is Department of Public Works and Transportation regarding FDR Phase 3B, fee simple property acquisition for High Hotels Limited. Mr. Gary Whipple presenting, and Allison Swint, I believe, is on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Weiskopf. Good morning, Commissioners. We have Alan Settle on the line also for FDR Boulevard. I believe that's the agenda item I'm leading off with first. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So as you're aware, the Phase 3A of FDR was awarded in late October, and we're looking at a construction completion in the spring of '23. So that phase runs from Chancellor's Run down to Buck Hewitt. As we continue with the project, we have 23 parcels that we need to acquire to finish Phase 3B. We've already have 4 parcels that are under contract. This morning, we're bringing to you an options contract for a parcel down at the end of the project off of Peg Road. This is with the High Hotels property. The property is a little less than 4 acres, and it's right down at the Smeklo substation across from the Naval Air Museum. So this anchors the property acquisition for the southern end of the project.
0.4 acres, right?
0.4, yes, sir. And as we continue with the construction of Phase 3A, we are working to complete the property acquisition for Phase 3B in the spring of this year. Concurrent to that, we're working on the utility relocations that will also support the construction, looking to advertise the construction of Phase 3B in the fall of this year, with the start of construction in the winter of 2023. So we recommend your approval of this option contract so that we can continue our property acquisition services for the FDR project. And as I mentioned, I have Alan Settle online if you have any detailed questions that I can't cover.
I move to approve the exercise of the option contract with High Hotels Limited and the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, and to authorize the Commissioner present to sign any related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any disapprovals? Ayes have it.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Whipple, one other thing. Away from this, I have several emails and phone calls about the plowing we just did the last snow. I'm sure you must have been addressed on them too, about mailboxes being torn up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure you've been aware of them.
Yes, sir, and we're responding to those inquiries through the communications that we've received. And
I think mailboxes aren't covered, if I've been told before by your predecessor.
No, we cover mailboxes for county roads, but not state roads.
Oh, that's the deal.
Correct. Right, and what I'd like to emphasize real quick, if I could, if county residents have a concern about a mailbox, the 311 system that's been set up for all road maintenance, that is ideal for them to register that in the 311 system because that's address-based, and so that system will automatically sort between those properties.
I told a few people already. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So that's our recommendation to the public.
Well, thank you.
And on that topic, Mr. Whipple, you and your team did a great job in this last snowstorm. You really did.
Well, thank you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't pass on that appreciation to the team in the department, the Highways Division, Construction Inspections, looking at the contractors, our STS folks, solid waste folks, good plans, good people, and I'd like to just make sure that they are recognized for that.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Oh, and also on FDR, I was notified by Mr. Settle that we have received another options contract just in the last 2 days for property acquisition, so we'll be back in the next couple of days to keep this process going.
Good. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Whipple. And next, Mr. Whipple will remain regarding the FAA American Rescue Grant Program, and that is the one that the airport manager, Ms. Allison Swint, is standing by on Zoom for.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, earlier this year, you approved an application for FAA funding for Airport Rescue Grant Program support for the airport, and we do have the grant agreement, which is consistent with the application. The funding is for operations, personnel costs, and cleaning costs to support pandemic operations. There's also an associated budget amendment in this package that we're requesting approval for. And I have Ms. Swin online if you have any particular questions about the funding, but the grant agreement is consistent with the application, and we recommend that you approve the grant agreement and also the budget amendment.
I move to approve the budget amendment increasing US 2224 in the amount of $59,000 and accept the Airport Rescue Grant Program grant agreement in the amount of $59,000 awarded to the St. Mary's County Regional Airport and authorize the Commissioner President to electronically sign all related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Whipple. Next is Department of Recreation and Parks, Mr. Arthur Shepard in person regarding the Friends of the Museum Memorandum of Understanding, and Ms. Karen Stone on Zoom.
In person. Oh, my.
And also with us is the Friends Chair, Mr. Dale Springer, on Zoom. Commissioners, this is an opportunity after 3 years for a revised MOU with the Friends and all they do to support the museum division. You know, and as you most likely are aware that over $43,000 worth goes into staffing to support the museum division. Their exhibits help with that. Any other type of printing or advertising, and just worked so well and effectively. And I want to thank Mr. Springer and the entire Friends for that, and Mr. Morgan, Commissioner Morgan's with the Friends as well, and what that partnership and collaboration means. So today I'd just like for you to review the MOU and authorize that so we can move forward strongly in the future.
Sounds good. Richard? Just want to recognize Mr. Springer for hanging in there throughout this whole meeting. Thank you for that. So I move to approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Commissioners of St. Mary's County through the Department of Recreation and Parks Museum Division and the Friends of St. Clements Island and Piney Point Museums, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Next is Department of Human Resources for personnel. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep jumping ahead. Next is still Department of Recreation and Parks for the Child Care Stabilization Grant Phase 2. And Ms. Jessica Hale is on Zoom, and Mr. Art Shepard presenting.
Well, thanks again. You know, we've already received that Phase 1 funding for the stabilization grant that's been through supplementing and augmenting our operations there. But we have another opportunity of $77,090, and it comes at just at the right time because we're getting ready to open our 5th center. We have 4 school-age centers before and after care, and we want to open one up at the end of this month at Letty Den Elementary School, so the timing is just right. It'll help support center operations, staffing, and other expendables. So we're delighted with this opportunity. We were notified by them, and I'm asking you to authorize the fact that we apply for this online application by January 24, 2022.
So just a question about the motion. This is great, but are we approving the grant or the grant application?
Application, sir.
Okay.
Arthur, while you're here, what are the other schools supported by this grant? I mean, we say we have 4, we're going to add Letty Dent. What are the 4 that we already have?
Okay, Jessica, be prepared to help. Duke, Leonardtown Elementary, we got the Hollywood Recreation Center, and Evergreen.
Okay.
Almost. It's Chesapeake Charter School,
Yes.
Duke Elementary, Evergreen, Hollywood Recreation Center, and then we will be able to open up Letty Dent January 31st.
Good. Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Jessica.
That's good. Any more questions, Commissioners?
I'll move to approve and accept the Child Care Stabilization Fund grant award from the Maryland State Department of Education in the amount of $77,090 and authorize the Commissioner President to sign the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thanks, Mike.
You've accepted it, so you got to apply for it.
Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Next is item J, Department of Human Resources Personnel Policy Manual Update. Catherine Pratson, Director, presenting.
Thank you. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you may recall that annually we review the Personnel Policy Manual and propose any updates as necessary. I'd like to present the proposals in 2 items this year, one today and then one a month from today, and to tackle some of the pandemic-related items this morning. So the first request is administrative leave. You may recall that this time last year, the commissioners approved up to 10 days of paid administrative leave for any employee who had a work-related COVID diagnosis and/or quarantine. As Dr. Brewster mentioned earlier, and as the CDC has proposed, the quarantine time has been reduced for employees, and currently it's 5 days if you have no symptoms, and ideally you would have a negative test, and then you're asked to come back to work with masks. So typically you quarantine for 5 days, and then if you can test, and you're usually back around day 6 or 7. So I'm asking the commissioners to consider continuing the administrative leave, but reducing it to 7 days, which is typically what our employees are experiencing. And then the other item I'm asking you to consider.
Can I interrupt? Mr. President, the question I got is, I see where you're coming from, but how do we know if the person was exposed at work or if the person was exposed at home? Because we have so many people teleworking now. At least I'm hoping people are teleworking. That's what our policy has been, to encourage that at this present time. And all of a sudden, if somebody says, well, I got COVID, well, you know, if you've been teleworking, that's one thing. If you went to a grocery store and picked it up, came home and got sick because I've been at the grocery store is one thing. Now we're asking for more time. Now I can understand, you know, people who are in the field constantly, say Rex and Parks or DPW, where, you know, you're in constant contact with people, you should be in constant contact with people. But now we have, you know, this situation that's occurring, and now we're looking to expand the number of administrative days from 5 to 7. I mean, where's the checks and balances, if there are any?
Well, actually, this policy is reducing it.
We're reducing it from 10 to 7.
Excuse me?
The proposal is to reduce it from 10 to 7. You've currently approved 10.
It's been 10 all along.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're following CDC guidelines, right?
Right, and I'm sorry for the confusion. Yes.
I'd like to interject here is that the CDC guidelines in Dr. Brewster's presentation, she recommended 5 for public safety, and also with the negative testing that went on top of it. For instance, you let's say if I was a county government employee, I contracted COVID, and my symptoms didn't start till 3 days later, and the health department recommended to me, and now I'm on day 9, 10 days due to the fact that I'm still sick. So if we have an employee that is contracted COVID at work, and the health department is still recommending 10 to 14 days, it's only 5 days with the negative testing to return back. We're now shorting our employees that may have contracted it at work. I think maybe putting a mechanism in place that says upon extended administrative leave, upon approval of the Department of Human Resources, anything past 5 or 7 days or whatever it is that I think you're recommending 5 days, would be upon approval of Human Resources to reduce it, but not take it completely out, just in case somebody is experiencing that level of illness.
And so, thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. And just to clarify, what the commissioners approved last January was up to 10 days. And then I was proposing that we may modify that. But certainly, if anybody is, so currently the process is you would get in touch with one of the nurses. The nurses would work with the health department and determine your quarantine. If someone's quarantine is 7 days, we're not going to give them the 10. We're only going to give them the 7. And the assumption is you are symptom-free and well enough to come back. So the converse is if someone is not well enough, they're not coming back to work. And we've had examples last year with people whose quarantine has extended past 10 days or who have contracted COVID twice, and then they use their own leave beyond the 10 days, is what the current practice has been.
Yeah, anything beyond the 10 days, I think, is absolutely fair. I have no problem with reducing it to 7, but leaving the 10 in the manual, but anything past 7 has to be approved by Human Resources. I think I just don't want to remove it and then remove a tool that you're able to work with for those that may have the extended quarantine based on the health department.
Well, it might be just a better idea to follow CDC guidelines and, make ourselves flexible, of course. If people are sick, they're sick. But, it seems like CDC comes up with guidelines for a reason, and most people follow them.
So no more than 10 with approval,
Yeah, something like that.
and with the following of the guidelines.
You have confidence in the CDC right now?
Well, I don't know, but they're supposed to be the experts,
Well,
Yeah, right.
But the story at 8 is going to be different than the story at 4 with the CDC.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and then the other item that I wanted to discuss is it's been becoming very difficult to determine what is work-related and what isn't, based on your point and based on how contagious this variant is. We have people in the sheriff's office in particular that are testing positive that have absolutely no symptoms, have no idea where it came from. So what I'd like to ask is that we have the flexibility to provide those people with the admin leave as well. In some examples, it's very clear. I went to a trip, I went to a wedding, I was exposed, I came back and I'm sick. But in many examples, it has not been clear.
Well, what's difficult is that we used to have a term called flu and cold season, Hey, look, it's winter, you're liable to get a cold, you're liable to get the flu. And that never seemed to, but look, if you're sick,
Now we have flu, cold, and COVID.
Well, everything's COVID. We cured the flu,
that's right.
cured the cold.
Everything's
But
COVID.
I guess my key is, Ms. Pratzen, is that you do need flexibility to be able to understand. Now, look, whether they caught it on the job or off the job doesn't mean anything to this commissioner, because I don't want them coming to the job and infecting everybody on the job.
And it's important that people stay home.
Yeah, so
we're effectively changing the administrative leave policy. They can then go on to sick leave after that if it gets extended for any reason.
So what the request is that we would provide the admin leave again
Right.
this year, and it's considered a temporary policy.
Right,
so
right.
God willing, we won't need it next
This is resulting from the pandemic only.
Right, and that we could go up to 10 days, but it will be with approval, and it's going to depend on the circumstance. And then similarly, whether it's work-related or not is not going to be of the leave.
Listen to Dr. Michaels today when he talked about, hopefully this thing will start leveling off and going down in February.
Right.
Maybe it's a 6-week policy, something.
Where they call it herd immune system?
Whatever.
Yeah, and
I
absolutely.
don't even hear that term no more.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely would love to revisit it and not need it anymore.
Right. Okay.
Ms. Pratzen, the other question I had was, with all this being said, prime example, let's say, you have a employee that tests positive. Of course, they have a child. 5 days in, their child tests positive, so their quarantine times are different. That employee would be eligible for either family sick leave or FMLA in order to take care of their child, obviously, through whatever mechanisms we have, correct?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And we've had a couple of examples last year, one in particular of an employee whose COVID exposure extended into a very long, very serious illness, and it transferred to FMLA, and fortunately, they're back at work and they're fine. But yes, we have sick leave that you can use for family members, and FMLA you can use for yourself and/or your family members.
I appreciate this, and the last thing I have on this is I have dealt with 3 different local governments that are not offering any administrative leave for COVID-19, and employees are having to use their sick leave, they're having to use their annual leave, their comp time to go through everything. So it's hurting, especially if they get COVID multiple times. So I think doing this for the employees is an amazing thing to have and helps retain our workforce. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Oh, sure. And thank you, Commissioners. The second item is rather fussy. So the President in the fall requested that OSHA develop an emergency temporary standard that would require a vaccine and/or a vaccine testing policy for employers with more than 100 employees. As you may know, the Fifth Circuit Court appealed that policy. There was a stay on that. The Sixth Circuit Circuit Court overrode the stay. So the current requirement is that employers with more than 100 employees have a policy in place effective January 10th. The Supreme Court heard this last week. There's a lot of discussion that the Supreme Court didn't seem to be in favor of the policy, but as of yet, there has been no movement from the Supreme Court. So we went ahead and drafted the policy. We drafted the policy that employees who are not vaccinated would be required to test weekly. We have a month to put the structure in place for that to happen. And OSHA is expecting employers by the 10th of February to be showing a good faith effort in implementing the policy. We had hoped that we would know more by today with what the Supreme Court was doing, and I checked this morning before coming over, and there was no updated information. So the commissioners are asked to approve the policy so we would be in line with the current requirement. And then when I come back in February, I would know more with whether the Supreme Court upholds the policy or not, and whether we actually have to implement.
Do we implement this on February 9th? Is that right?
Excuse me?
When do we implement this, on February 9th?
So employers are supposed to be showing that you're implementing the policy by the 10th of February, excuse me.
February.
So you have a month between developing and approving the policy to implementation.
Well, if we hear back from the Supreme Court by then.
So hopefully by February 1st, the Supreme Court will make a decision, we hope.
Yeah, and I know that Chief Justice Roberts, when he agreed to hear it, did say that they were going to fast track their decision because they know the position that employers are in.
Right.
And Commissioner O'Connor, I think you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this is the vaccination policy is not mandating that our employees get vaccinated. What it's saying is that if you're not vaccinated, you're going to just have to get tested every week for COVID, which seems to be what's going on anyway right now with all the testing that's going on. Is that a fair read?
It is. That's an accurate assessment of the policy that was proposed. The other item that we would have to put in place is that employees are going to have to disclose to us their status. And up till now, we've not required that. That's been voluntary. So we will work with IT and develop a system and develop a process, and then again, hopefully know whether it even needs to be implemented before the 10th of February.
All right, now the other question I would have with this policy is if those that are unvaccinated are having to get tested, are we going to be requiring, since the healthcare coverage has come in where they recover 8 tests, that the county is going to seek reimbursement for the testing that has to be applied? Or are we going to require them to use the 8 tests? Or is there any mechanism for that? Because this is going to become quite an expensive endeavor for the county, regardless of vaccinated or unvaccinated. Because even those that are vaccinated are going to have to get tested as well. So I'm just trying to see what's the long game here.
So what Commissioner O'Connor is referencing is that I believe it's by the 15th of January, healthcare insurers have to pay, and I think it's up to 8 tests per healthcare individual, per enrollee, per month. I have not gotten anything from Care First on that, so I can't answer that. I don't know whether we are reimbursing or whether they are going to, what the mechanism will be for the participants. I'm also hoping that if this program is set up in the hospital's parking lot, employees could just go there, that testing would be more available by February. And again, we don't even know if it's going to be implemented.
That's, and Ms. Pratzen, I think that's my concern. That's my concern, is we can't have employees utilizing the tests from the health department and going across the street to get tested for our policy, because those tests are there for people that are actually sick, not for a government policy. So I want to make sure is that we're prepared to implement this policy with the appropriate testing measures. You know, we just allocated $250,000 for 43,000 test kits. How many test kits are we going to have on stock in order to facilitate this policy for unvaccinated? And I think we need to look at that cost. So if you can figure that out for me, I'd appreciate it.
I will be sure to.
My understanding, Ms. Pratzen, based on Commissioner O'Connor's question, is that if this goes into place, the Supreme Court rules that it does, that the county is not the one paying for the testing. Is that correct?
There's no obligation within the policy or within OSHA. Right. The obligation is that the county provides paid time for people to get vaccinated, and we've been doing that since the vaccinations have been available.
Right. But if somebody, say, doesn't want to get vaccinated and has to get weekly testing, that's on them. And I don't think a home kit qualifies.
That's going to be up to us.
Right, okay.
With whether it does or not. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Weisskopf. That's exactly what I'm getting at, is that, we have to have something internal to come up with, whether we have the test kits and we're doing it, or we're requiring the employee to go to their doctor and use their medical coverage to go ahead and get the actual test. These are things that we're going to have to think of with February coming right around the corner. And the county should not have to bear the full burden of the cost of the test, and the health department testing for the sick people shouldn't also bear the burden of the county's policy. I know the sheriff's department has a policy in place. Maybe if you reach out to them, see how they're doing it, maybe glean some information for their testing.
Certainly, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions?
And then lastly, I'm proposing just a minor update to the pandemic policy and to allow in level 2 for a requirement for masks, should it be recommended by the governor and or the local health officials.
That's also not mandatory. That's a may, not
Right,
a shall.
right,
So,
depending on the circumstance. And it just gives that flexibility within the pandemic policy.
Good. All right, I move to approve the policy changes for incorporation into the Manual of Personnel Policies and Procedures and the Hourly Handbook of Policies and Procedures as presented.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any disapprovals? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Ms. Pratzen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Captain.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Ms. Pratzen. And that concludes the county administrator time.
Uh-oh, let's see. Okay, it goes right into Commissioner's time, and since we still have you on the line, Commissioner O'Connor, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to keep it very short so I can keep my voice here. I want to thank everybody for their outpouring of support and helping my family. As we all three of us, had COVID, all within a few days of each other. Some of us were affected a little bit harder than others, and obviously, if you heard in the background, I still have my son, and if you heard him yelling, it's because he's feeling better. So I'll take him screaming and yelling for a little bit while I'm doing the meeting. He was actually very well behaved for me today. And other than that, just keep an eye on your friends, and if you have to get tested, and do your best to try and wash your hands, sanitize your hands, do whatever you can to help stop the spread, whatever you can do, really, because I'll tell you, this variant, whichever one I may have, was I call it the original gangsta version because it really knocked me back a little bit. It took a little bit out of me, so I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We'll go right ahead and go with Commissioner Morgan next.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I know it's been a while since we've been here, but still Happy New Year. A couple things to focus on. We had a passing over the past few weeks of a guy named Papa Rothwell. If you knew Pop was a sports icon around here and entrepreneur, owned Happy Land Bar, a few other places down the road, great with sports, great with softball, great with basketball. So to his wife Doris and to the Rothwell family, we express our condolences. We had a little snow the other day, a lot more in the north than the south, and I do want to express our thanks to DPWT and all they did, and to the contractors who are out there, and the ability to, particularly in the north, Country Lakes, Golden Beach, to get the trees off the road, to get the burn sites up and going so that the next storm comes through, the roads are clear again. But if you're out there and they say, stay off the roads because it's going to snow and rain, please take note to stay off the road because it's snowing and rain, because we had a lot of accidents for people who are out there. You know, it's nice to go out there on a four-wheel drive truck and do a four-wheel drive, but there's no weight in the back, and you learn that thing spins out along the way. So please be careful. We also had a long discussion this morning with Dr. Brewster on COVID. And a couple things I've noted about St. Mary's is that the governor is touting a 70% vaccination rate in the state with first and second shots, and I forget if boosters are in there. But at St. Mary's, we're only at 52%. That's a heck of a difference, 18% between 52 for here and 70 for the state. So in particular, the 29 to 39-year-old, 20 to 39-year-olds are the category that are most at risk and those who have had the least amount of shots. So I would encourage you to get a shot. The logistics of getting the shots and the logistics of getting the followed firehouse, I think, are something they have to take note of. It was good that Dr. Brewster points out that she's got to follow the state database, and the state database breaks down half the time. And I know the frustration that people get to when they're trying to register on site and you can't get to the site because it's not working. So please don't call Dr. Brewster and blame the health department. Please don't be calling the IT department and blaming them for it. This is a state function, and with all the money that Annapolis has up there right now, you would think they'd be able to figure out this IT glitch. Finally, access to telework. I think everyone has the teleworking going on. I know all the bases work teleworking as maximum extent possible. I know that many of the contractors are following the federal rules to have masks inside buildings. So I know that particular area is being taken care of as best they can. So in the end, there's three things you got to do. Please wear your masks, please get your vaccine, and please get a booster. And then maybe this will all go away, and by summer or next 6 weeks or whatever it is, we won't be talking about this again, and we'll get on to normalcy. So with that, Happy New Year, everybody.
All right. Couple of interesting things of note. Tomorrow, the General Assembly convenes for their session. I want to wish our senator and delegates well. I hope they represent us well up there. They always do. And we're going to be paying attention. I encourage you to pay attention because you never know what Annapolis is going to do every year. Second, just the other day, Atlantic Broadband decided to change their name to BreezeLine. Now, we get a lot of calls about Atlantic Broadband. I know a lot of people out there make a lot of calls to Atlantic Broadband. So my eternally optimistic self is looking at this as a fresh start for them. They're trying to do a fresh start and hopefully improve upon their customer service. So best wishes to them on that, to BreezeLine and all you do for our citizens, and there's room for improvement. Keep improving. Over the weekend, I lost a coworker and friend to cancer. She was actually younger than me. And so it's never easy to see that. There's a lot of people down in the southern part of the county mourning family, friends, co-workers. Jessica was an incredible worker, so our heart goes out to your family, your friends, co-workers, everyone mourning. With all this talk about COVID, with everything else that's still out there, you don't know how long your days are. We all know that our days are numbered. We don't know when the end will be. Take advantage of the time with your family, with your friends, and don't ever squander it. Finally, public forum tonight, 6:30 p.m. Hope to see you here or online. Give us a call. You can talk to us about anything you want to talk to us about. Look forward to public forum this evening. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Hewitt.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner President Guy. Okay, COVID, boy, I tell you, we're getting a lot of people frustrated, and I think COVID fatigue is hitting us all. But as you'll see today, as this commissioner and other ones are all wearing masks. Last week, the governor put in an emergency order that in the state buildings, they should wear a mask. So we've always followed the governor. And so I agree, if Governor Hogan thinks the state buildings should have masks, then the county buildings should too. Now, I did think it's only a time limited. I am hopeful, that's probably a better term, that Dr. Michael's point about this will surge and fall off after sometime in February, that this could be a 4 to 6 week event. Hopefully that'll be the case. But I do not agree that we need a county-wide mask. I feel that people can make their own decisions. I think this country's based on free choice. And honestly, if you're sick or you're worried about something, about catching something, stay home. Lord knows, if you don't feel well, don't go out. But this is flu and cold season, and it just seems to be around. The other thing I liked about Dr. Michaels, he talked about personal responsibility. Look, there's Dayquil, NyQuil, Tylenol, Mucinex. There's so many other things out there we've always taken during flu and cold season. Try those remedies. But, like he said, if you can't breathe and you just feel so miserable, you can't get out of bed, then maybe it's time to go to the emergency room. Now, that leads to trying to follow up with people who are living alone. I have a rental home, and another person who has one had a person who lives alone pass away, and nobody knew. And the key gets to be is checking on people. And the next part gets to be is like, hey, look, if you haven't returned my text or you haven't answered the phone, I'm sending 911. So lay rules out. Because a lot of times people will say, you know, I don't want to be bothered by this. I'm unvaccinated, but I don't go anywhere. You got to be careful. So make sure you have a plan. If you have someone living alone, that you know after, and they know that after so many calls or so many unanswered texts, you're going to send 911. And when you send 911, tell the people there that the person you're concerned about has been sick or has been ill or something like that, so they don't walk into a bad situation. But I don't know if masks work or not. Science says it does, so I'm going to believe in science. So I got my mask on, and I'll wear it for as long as it takes. I also echo the public forum tonight. Many people have reached out about the YMCA and want to be apologetic for a meeting that happened here a month ago and this and that. And I said, you know, do whatever you feel you need to do. But honestly, people get emotional. And there's nothing wrong with that. Showing your emotion means you're human. And all you got to do is try and maintain law and order, Lord knows. But nothing's easy, and please show up, and whatever's on your mind, tell us about it. And lastly, Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, I'd like to express the Happy New Year. Hopefully 2022 will be better for all of us. And let's hope that somehow this pandemic will start mellowing out by next month, and we'll start treating it as a normal flu-type pandemic than a emergency we're going through right now. And but right now, I think the thing it is, for those you're not vaccinated, you're taking a big risk, and I believe if you can get a vaccination, you'll be better off. And wear a mask and try to do social distancing right now for the time being. We did it for our county offices, mainly to protect our employees. If people are not there to serve you, they're not there to help you, not here to work, we can't help you out. So we have to protect our own clientele, and that's why we've done it. And I know some businesses are doing the same thing, and you'll have to honor their, and respect them. If they say wear a mask inside, you have to wear one. And they're trying to protect their employees. If you noticed on the news last couple of days, a lot of these shortages throughout the country, throughout our state, is really based on they don't have employees coming in to distribute the foods and items and distribute and even produce these items. It's become a real problem. So we've got to do our part and make sure we do everything we can to protect everybody. I also want to shout out to our first big snowstorm this year. I want to thank the people in the 7th District Rescue Squad, the fire department and rescue units that were running around, and at least the 7th District, and I'm sure the other fire departments doing the same thing, helping people literally cut out of their driveways. Some of us, me, for example, I have about 1,200 feet of this just wooded driveway getting into my house, and that snowstorm just pulled a whole bunch of trees over top of my driveway. And so I was out there trying to clear it, and sure enough, this group from the 7th District Fire Department showed up, and for about 45 minutes worked hard to help me clear out my driveway. And true volunteerism exists still in this county, and I'm grateful for that. And I thank you guys for getting out there and working all day and half the night probably, because they showed up at my place. It was starting to get dark, and they still worked hard and kept on going. They were getting calls for other people that had the same problems. So I thank you all for getting out there and helping out. And I thank the state and county maintenance people and those out there clearing that helped out. And for those of you who have responded to me about your mailboxes being knocked over or whatever, I ask you to use our 311 system to report that, because it actually gives a location, and we'll be able to figure out if it's a state problem or a county problem. So please do that right now. So the next thing I want to remind everybody that 6:30 p.m. tonight, we have our first public forum. This is how we are able to get additional information from our citizens about problems that may be out there. And please do come out or at least call in. There's got a call-in number if you don't want to come here in person because of this rise in our COVID problem here. You're able to call in and talk to us. We'll be glad to hear from you. So with that said, we need to have a motion to go into closed session.
I move to enter into closed session to discuss personnel.
Second.
We have a first and second. We'll take a 5-minute break and then go into closed session.
I'd say motion, I vote yes.
No. Did we all vote for the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
So we'll take a 5-minute.